She was a single mother expecting her third child.
She was real happy. She was already making plans.
She was able to acquire a new home.
And this time, she knew she'd found the right partner.
He cared for her son.
He was an upstanding pillar of the community.
Any problems or needs, he's the guy.
But then 3 gunshots leave her clinging to life.
She was very gravely injured.
There was hope that she could push through.
It has all the markings of a hate crime.
The letters KKK was spray painted in multiple places.
This is certainly a targeted attack.
Until detectives uncover a shocking motive for murder.
It didn't make sense.
Something so violent doesn't sit right.
Whoever did this was trying to create confusion.
October 13th, 2020. It's just after midnight in Chicago, Illinois, a Midwest metropolis of nearly 10 million.
The city certainly is rich in history, from its architecture to its location. It has the lake, it has skyscrapers.
Even though Chicago is a world-class city, you can very clearly at times see the racial and economical divide of the city.
The reality is there is a lot of crime that happens here in Chicago.
In response, the city has turned to what's known as ShotSpotter.
ShotSpotter technology is an acoustic, sound-driven device that alerts police before a 911 call can even be placed. Once shots are reported, Chicago police act based on the information that they receive.
It's always listening, always ready the moment trouble arises. And at 12:06 a.m., the ShotSpotter system alerts dispatch of several gunshots in the Jeffrey Manor neighborhood.
Jeffrey Manor is a community on the south side of Chicago, off of 95th Street. It's a quiet community.
There's relatively not a lot of crime.
1064, officer response needed to the area of 95th Street. ShotSpotter alert.
10-4, badge 2366 en route.
First responders immediately rush to the scene.
When they arrived, there was a female laying face down outside of a residence. She had been shot and was fighting for her life.
We still got a pulse.
And it's not just her life on the line.
This woman is maybe 8 months pregnant.
Ma'am, can you hear me?
But as long as she is breathing, there's hope that she and her unborn baby can survive.
Need medical, multiple gunshot wounds.
Number one duty of the police officer is to render aid.
Stay with me now. Can you tell me your name?
She is still conscious enough to give the police her name.
Stacy.
35-year-old Stacy Jones was a single mother of 2 boys when she first moved to Chicago from Tennessee.
She wanted a better life for her children.
She had goals, and she just wanted the best for everybody.
She found a home in the Jeffrey Manor community, which was a big positive for her. She had gotten exactly what she needed in order to raise her small family.
Chicago also came with a built-in support network.
Her mother's family was from Chicago.
They all helped out because they were so close.
Hey, cut over here? Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Transitioning from Tennessee to a big city like Chicago, community and relationships are going to be important.
The big move also came with more financial stability.
Stacy Jones was a probation officer.
She had been part of the law enforcement family for many, many years.
Prior to her move, she accepted a position with Cook County.
Probation officers paid a little bit more here than in Tennessee. That's why she went to Chicago.
Once settled, Stacy made sure her sons thrived in the Windy City.
She was a good mother to both of them. She put out 100%. And when they got older, she had them in football, baseball, and karate, so she kept them busy.
Hey, Mom, how's it going?
And through her son's time on the football team, Stacy found some excitement of her own.
Your son, he's a natural. Does he practice at home with Dad?
Nah, he ain't around.
Her son's coach was 39-year-old Corey Deering, a pillar of the community.
He was well known in the neighborhood for his longtime volunteer work with kids, as well as his career with the Parks Department.
He helped her son develop his skills in football, and he seemed to have enjoyed playing the sport.
And with each practice, Stacy found herself more and more drawn to him.
There's a level of trust that she developed with Deering because he cared for her son.
But I see how good you are with these kids now.
Yeah, these kids, they bring me joy.
This is someone that she began to like.
For Corey, the attraction was mutual.
At some point, their relationship became close, and they began a romantic relationship.
They quickly fell in love.
Within months of meeting, Stacy got a happy surprise when she found out she was expecting a new baby.
And when she learned it was going to be another boy, she was even more excited.
Over the next several months, Stacy wasted no time getting prepared for her new arrival.
She was real happy. She was already making plans. She was ready for it.
But now, just a month before her baby is due, police have discovered Stacy lying outside of her home after the Chicago ShotSpotter system detected gunshots in the area.
She was very gravely injured. She sustained 3 gunshot wounds to the back.
Can you hear me?
And she was still breathing.
There was hope that she could push through this.
But it's also what's around Stacy's body that officers find particularly alarming.
There's fresh graffiti at the scene.
The letters KKK was spray painted in multiple places on the home.
35-year-old Stacy Jones was excited to welcome a new baby into her growing family with Coach Corey Deering.
She had found out that it was a boy, so it wasn't like she didn't have experience raising these little boys.
She was happy. She made me proud. And was going to be a good mother to 3.
But now, just a month from her due date, Chicago police have found Stacy shot multiple times outside her home and racial slurs spray painted on the outside of her house.
When you have something so violent happen to a woman 8 months pregnant, it just doesn't sit right.
But she was alive.
We still got a pulse.
While paramedics begin to work on Stacy, responding officers clear the house.
They make a terrible discovery inside.
Her 11 and 7-year-old sons were in the house when their mother's gunned down on the porch.
Thankfully, they were unharmed, and both were asleep during the incident.
To be one moment sleeping soundly in your bed, to be awakened by sirens, I can't even imagine what those children were going through.
The officers contact one of Stacy's cousins to come pick up the children, while paramedics transport Stacy to the hospital.
As they're preparing for the ambulance, though, something falls from her pajamas.
It was a 9mm pistol.
We have a woman with a weapon in her waistband.
This certainly raised suspicion that Stacy Jones expected that something was going to happen.
Could that also mean she knew the attacker?
As EMTs rush Stacy to the hospital, major crimes detectives arrive and begin examining the scene.
What do we have, officer?
Stacy had been found shot in the back and was lying on her side, so it's apparent she turned away from her attacker.
So it would indicate to me one of 2 things. One, that she was either retreating in an urgent manner just to get away, or that she had completely let her guard down.
Detectives discover 3 shell casings by the door, as well as a small pool of blood.
Which means this is likely where the shooting occurred.
There's also derogatory graffiti plastered around the scene.
There's a racial slur.
Police immediately began their investigation, wondering whether or not a hate crime was involved.
But given the nature of the neighborhood, detectives are skeptical.
The neighborhood is predominantly African American and Hispanic.
It's a tight-knit community, so most of the people that stay in Jeffrey Manor know the ins and outs of Jeffrey Manor.
It's known as the Jeffrey Manor Maze. It'd be very difficult to do like a drive-by shooting per se.
This is not typically an area where white supremacists or racists would ply their trade, as it were.
Those sorts of racial tensions usually occur in areas where minorities are new arrivals rather than established residents.
It didn't make sense.
So it's clear that whoever did this was trying to initially throw the police off or kind of create confusion into the scene.
Still, the fact that Stacy took the time to get her own gun seems to indicate she was expecting trouble.
This is certainly a targeted attack.
But even though she had a weapon, Stacy had been shot in the back.
That suggests, obviously, somebody would have been retreating from a threat.
Was it immediately confrontational, or was it a conversation? Did her guard get let down?
When the detectives run Stacy's name, they realize that she may have had an extra reason to be wary of late-night visitors.
They find out that she's a probation officer.
Naturally, you want to think, does someone have angst against her directly based on her profession?
She's part of the law enforcement family, and everybody that puts on that badge understands that keep an eye out for yourself.
Maybe the shooter was a convicted felon out on probation, or the relative of an inmate whose probation had been revoked.
Hoping someone might have witnessed something, detectives canvass Stacy's neighbors.
Most homes these days use some sort of Ring camera or a camera that records the outside of what's going on.
We'd like to ask you some questions about the shooting that happened across the street.
Honestly, I ain't hear nothing. I was asleep.
Well, I noticed you do have a security camera.
Do you mind sharing that footage with us?
Yeah, no problem.
Great. Here's our card. Go ahead and send it to us on that email address right there. All right, thank you, sir.
When Stacy's cousin arrives to pick up the boys, she also agrees to speak with detectives.
That's the first line of inquiry. Who would want to harm this person? That they would have the nerve to come to her residence and gun her down.
Are you aware if Stacy had any enemies?
No. She was very well loved by everybody.
Her cousin doesn't know of anybody who would want to harm Stacy.
What about the father of her baby?
Obviously, people were aware she was 8 months pregnant.
To be honest, she never told me the name of her baby's father.
She was very private for, as it turns out, maybe some obvious reasons.
But I do know that he was married, though.
Stacy Jones's cousin has just told detectives investigating the shooting that left the young mother of 2 fighting for her life that she believes Stacy was dating a married man.
Could that have something to do with the shooting?
She was potentially breaking up a family, right?
I wish I knew more. Sorry.
Thanks. We're gonna head to the hospital.
We'll let you know if we have more questions, okay?
Unfortunately, Stacy won't be able to provide the detectives with any more information either.
When the detectives arrived at the hospital, they were greeted with bittersweet news.
The good part about it was they were able to deliver the baby alive.
He was delivered in critical condition.
My grandson, they're transferring him now. But it's sad.
There, he could receive proper neonatal care in the hopes that he could survive.
However, the doctors are unable to save his mother's life.
Stacy. They said there was nothing they could do.
Unfortunately, the injury was just too severe. She didn't survive.
Stacy's family is devastated by the outcome.
When I found out, I started crying. It was hard.
You lose a loved one, someone that is that person that you lean on and depend on, then all of a sudden it abruptly ends. It's unfair, it's not right.
After giving Stacy's mother a moment to compose herself, detectives ask if she'd be willing to answer a few more questions.
We want to know about the domestic relationships.
The sooner interviews take place, the more critical the responses.
Detectives start by asking if she can think of anyone who might have wanted to hurt Stacy.
No, no one. It doesn't make any sense.
She was a loving person. Not just me and the mother and children, to everybody.
To think somebody would be able to do this to a very visibly third trimester, not just woman, but a human being, was almost unimaginable.
Her mother is also unaware of any issues at Stacy's work.
No, she works so hard for those people.
She was dedicated to where she worked. She had a criminal justice degree. She had a master's degree, forensic, and she was going on to get a doctorate in forensic science.
Her hard work made her well loved by co-workers as well as clients.
Stacy chose a career where she's a probationary officer, and most people would think that that's a dangerous job, and it can be at times, but oftentimes probation officers will begin to, in some ways, develop a relationship, trying to make sure that they see the best for that individual so that they don't have to see them again.
Detectives then move on to the topic of the father of Stacy's baby.
Obviously, people were aware she's pregnant, but she was very private about who the father was.
In fact, the family didn't even know his name.
After wrapping up with Stacy's mother, detectives head back to the station, where they learn the footage from Stacy's neighbor has come in.
It was grainy at first, but it really created a clear-cut picture about what happened that night.
The video reveals a silver SUV approaching Stacy's house and then driving slowly past.
More importantly, they were able to get the license plates.
A moment later, a man enters the frame.
Although they could not see the face of the individual, one of the things that they saw was a sweatshirt with a very distinctive symbol on it.
He seemed suspicious as he approaches Stacy's house, shining a flashlight into the windows.
After the man knocks on the door, detectives watch as Stacy peers out one of the windows.
She obviously recognizes him and opens her door.
The two of them have a brief conversation outside.
Then she turned her back to go back into the home when she was shot.
He took the time to spray KKK at the scene.
At that point, the man runs.
But it's clear that Stacy never reaches for her own weapon.
There's no evidence to show that she felt so uncomfortable that she wanted to retrieve it. Matter of fact, she was so comfortable that she turned her back on the attacker because she didn't feel like her life was in danger.
But it's still not clear if the man was the father of her baby or just an angry parolee. It could have been anyone.
Hoping to learn more, detectives head to the probation office where Stacy worked.
They're greeted by one of Stacy's co-workers, and she says she's willing to talk to them.
Do you have a few minutes to speak to us about Stacy?
Oh, of course. Anything I can do to help.
Detectives start by asking her coworker if she knows of any parolees that Stacy might have had issues with.
They'd asked if maybe it was someone that she'd sent back to jail, or maybe a family member of someone.
No, not Stacy. I mean, Stacy got along with everyone, and I'm pretty sure that if there was an issue or a problem, she would let me know.
That's when the police learn that the coworker was also one of Stacy's closest friends.
Do you know anything about the father of her child? Anything you can tell us?
Actually, yes.
She was able to shed even more light on the person that she was pregnant with.
And I do know that his first name was Corey.
She knew his name was Corey. She wasn't aware of his last name.
He was Stacy's son's football coach.
But she also knew that the situation with Corey wasn't as rosy as one might think.
Stacy had recently hinted that they were having trouble.
She told law enforcement that he was unhappy with the pregnancy.
As a matter of fact, he told her to get an abortion.
Detectives investigating the murder of Stacy Jones have just learned that the father of her child was less than thrilled about her pregnancy.
There's that opportunity of him being found out by his wife in particular. That certainly is, unfortunately, motives that we've seen in the past.
Detectives ask Stacy's coworker about Stacy and Corey's dating history.
She said that Stacy and Coach Corey had started to date at the beginning of the year, and she was pregnant within a few months.
She said that Corey said that he was afraid of how the baby was going to affect his marriage.
He was pressuring her to have an abortion.
But Stacy refused, and eventually she and Corey broke things off.
The coworker said that Stacy thought that would be the end of it.
She's already a single mother. She's raising 2 boys and she's got a job. Even if the father wasn't going to be involved, she appeared to be very confident that her baby was going to be just fine.
And then it got really ugly. He began to threaten her.
The further that Stacy got along in her pregnancy, the more upset he got and the more threats Stacy began to receive.
And there was one threat that stood out in particular.
Corey told Stacy that she would never make it to the end of the pregnancy.
It was obvious that she was afraid, even though she tried to hide it.
As time went on, she appeared to let her guard down, almost as if to say, well, I'm nearing the end, so maybe the threat has been alleviated.
She says Stacy had become confident enough to go on the offensive herself.
She started an investigation into Corey and into his background in the efforts to be able to collect child support.
She wanted him to take some financial responsibility.
Now, was Corey aware that she was going to file child support?
I'm not sure.
This was turning out to not only be a threat to his marriage, but his finances as well, which could be a huge motivating factor.
But was that enough to push him to murder? Back at the station, detectives look into Corey, starting with his last name.
That's presumably not going to be that hard to find the coach of the youth football team.
And sure enough, they quickly get a hit. 39-year-old Corey Deering.
Not only is he a football coach, he actually works for the Park District. There's an office there at the local park. He is the person that's called on by people who frequent the park. Any problems or needs that they have, he's the guy.
Corey had been in the district for more than a decade.
He was a trusted and respected member of the community.
He had no criminal background.
But just because Corey doesn't have a rap sheet doesn't mean he hasn't dealt with legal trouble.
As the police began to do a deeper dive, they find out that Corey has other court cases pending against him. And for not 1, not 2, but 5 other custody and child support cases from 5 different women.
Stacy's not the only woman that's out here that is in this relationship with this married man. What's going on with this brother?
It's clear that Corey is no stranger to the situation he was in with Stacy.
So this caused the police to think that if he's had 5 other custody cases and paternity cases pending, why Stacy? Why now?
It's something police want to ask Corey himself.
They went over to the Park District building in order to speak to Corey.
We'd like to ask you some questions about Stacy Jones.
Right at the start of the conversation, Corey confirms he's known Stacy since the previous summer, and that her son plays on his youth football team.
When they pressed him on the depths of his relationship with Stacy, he was very upfront.
He openly admitted that him and Stacy had been in a relationship and that the relationship had started fairly quickly after she had moved to Chicago.
Beyond that, Mr. Deering also told police that he knew she was pregnant.
Yeah, I'm also pretty sure I'm the father.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, it's not ideal, right?
He said that he respected the fact that Stacy decided to keep the baby.
He had no plans to be involved in the child's life, but he had no issue with Stacy Jones.
I mean, this isn't the first time I've been in a situation like this, you know?
Corey tells detectives that he and Stacy did break things off, but remained cordial.
But he also told police he hadn't spoken to Stacy since July.
At that point, detectives reveal that Stacy is dead, and her newborn son is in critical condition.
But he was just taken aback that he would at all be a suspect because, as he told the police, he had not talked to her in months.
So detectives asked Corey where he was the night of the shooting.
He says he was home with his wife and his son, just doing some stuff in the garage.
His hobby was fitness, and he worked out a lot.
I was in the garage working out, and my son was there for a while. He eventually went inside.
He said his family could confirm his alibi.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Detectives are still suspicious of Corey, but since they don't have anything to bring him in on, they're forced to leave.
But they promise they'll be in touch.
After talking to Corey, the detectives subpoena his phone records.
They also learned that the trace on the SUV's license plate had come back.
And much to their surprise, the license plate does not actually come back to Corey Deering.
The owner of the car was a person by the name of Alicia Wyatt.
Chicago detectives have just learned that the SUV caught on security video the night of Stacy Jones's murder is registered to a woman named Alicia Wyatt.
The police are stunned. Who is Alicia Wyatt? Given the nature of Stacy's job, is she someone that was a client, a parolee?
Or was she related to someone who was?
While police are dispatched to find Alicia Wyatt,
Got the records?
detectives dig deeper into Stacy's case files.
They don't find any parolees with the last name Wyatt, or anyone listing her as a contact.
So now the police are really trying to figure out how these two women are connected.
Detectives also reach back out to Stacy's coworker, who says the name doesn't sound familiar.
The only option detectives have at this point was to follow up on Corey's alibi.
Police went to speak to Corey's wife.
Do you know a woman named Stacy Jones?
Who?
Corey's wife immediately denies any knowledge of anyone named Stacy Jones.
No, but I wouldn't be surprised whoever she is if she's pregnant.
Why do you say that?
Whether she wasn't familiar with Stacy, she still knew that her man was cheating on her.
Because according to her, this isn't the first time it's happened.
She knew this guy had multiple women. She even told him, like, I'm familiar with this lifestyle that he has. So was it love? Was the financial gain? What was it that was keeping her there with Corey?
You think Corey's capable of murder?
Corey? No. He's never been bothered with anyone else that I know of.
He had other children with women who were not his wife. There was no evidence that he ever attempted to harm those women, attempted to threaten them so that they would not have these children. So it is curious as to why Stacy Jones having his child would be the trigger for him.
Corey's wife also confirms his alibi.
She indicated to them that on the night of the shooting, he had been at home in the garage, both working on a vehicle and also working out. This was something that Corey did on a daily basis.
And our son was out there most of the evening with him.
According to Corey's wife, their son came back inside and got ready for bed around 10:30.
She said she went to bed around then as well, but the garage light was still on.
Do you mind if we see this garage?
Sure. This way.
Before leaving, detectives take a look around the garage.
As expected, there's a home gym and a workshop area.
But that's not all detectives find.
Upon searching the garage, they found cans of white spray paint.
Given the graffiti at the crime scene, this grabbed detectives' attention.
This stuff belonged to Corey?
Actually, all that paint is mine. I use it for screen printing.
Corey Deering's wife told that she used the spray paint in order to do screen printing of t-shirts, and that Corey would help her with that from time to time.
So was it the same paint or just a coincidence?
Detectives wrap up at Corey's house. But when they return to the station, it's to sad news.
Homicide.
Stacy's baby didn't make it.
The young boy did survive for only 4 days.
He was on the life reserve, but they told him even if he lived, he'd never be no good. So they made the decision to take him off life preserve. It was rough.
The baby succumbed to the injuries, not from the shooting, but from the lack of oxygen received because of the condition of its mother when its mother was killed.
So now, as far as from the police standpoint, it's become a double homicide investigation.
But was Corey the killer?
Detectives get some more insight when they finally receive his cell phone records.
It's not about what they find, but what they don't find.
There's no activity on the phone between 10:30 p.m. and 1 a.m., which would have been around the time of Stacy's murder.
Usually when you have cell phones, they're able to ping off of different cell towers to kind of outline where you are in the area, or even to show that the phone was in use. What stood out to the police in this moment was that there was no activity whatsoever.
But at 1 a.m., he suddenly places a single phone call.
He placed a call to Alicia Wyatt.
We got him.
Detectives investigating the murders of Stacy Jones and her newborn child have just uncovered tangible evidence connecting her ex-boyfriend, 39-year-old Corey Deering, to the shooting.
On the night of the shooting, Corey Deering had called Alicia Wyatt.
Alicia was the owner of the SUV seen riding past Stacy's house before the shooting.
And when the detectives finally sit down with Alicia, they learn that the phone call isn't the only thing connecting her to Corey.
She's currently pregnant by Corey as well.
Convinced that Alicia must know something about Stacy's murder, they press her to tell them what happened that night.
It doesn't take long for her to fold.
It's true, Corey did call me that night.
According to Alicia Wyatt, on the night of the shooting, Corey Deering had asked her to come pick him up from the alley outside of his home, where he was working out.
Give me your phone.
What for?
Does it matter?
Corey took her cell phone as well as his own and left it in the area of where his home was.
He was aware of cell phone triangulations, so he did not take these cell phones to the vicinity of the crime that he obviously had premeditated.
Then Alicia says Corey instructed her to drive to a neighborhood she'd never been to.
Alicia doesn't ask a lot of questions. This is her man. She trusts him.
According to Alicia, at some point Corey told her to stop and he got out of the vehicle.
Just wait right here.
Corey goes around the corner. She's not privy to see what has happened, but what she can say has happened is that during his absence, she's heard gunshots ring out.
And then he came back a few minutes later out of breath. What happened?
Drive up the block.
He instructed her to drive to a different area where he got out of the car again and finally came back to the car the second time, panting and sweating, When he returned to the vehicle, he was very stoic.
Shortly thereafter, they leave the scene.
Alicia says she dropped him off. He gave her back her phone and then called her a bit later after she returned home.
Then I heard about the murder on the news and I recognized the house and I didn't know what to do.
Alicia suspected that Corey was involved in something, although she never asked him what he did, and she never actually saw him do anything. She was afraid for her own safety.
And you didn't know what his plans were?
No, I swear I had no clue what he was doing.
Ultimately, detectives believe her. They think she really had no idea what Corey was going to do.
So they let her go.
Her statements were very consistent with what was known at the time. She was, police believe, a pawn.
But her statement is enough to get an arrest warrant for Corey.
Corey was charged with at least 2 counts of first-degree murder, both for Stacy Jones and for the child that was born and lived for 4 days.
Once he's arrested, Corey refuses to speak to police.
But Corey's lack of cooperation hardly matters once detectives are able to confiscate his phone.
Apparently, Corey liked to record his workouts, even one from the night of the murder.
During the recording of the workout, he had on a certain sweatshirt that had a certain distinct marking on it, consistent with the distinct marking that they saw on the individual who shot Stacy Jones.
I guess the idea is to show that he's, hey, I'm at my garage working and nowhere near the crime scene, but you forgot to take off a very descriptive sweatshirt.
And on June 6, 2023, the case goes to trial.
On the one side, you have the prosecution who has said that, yes, this man was a philanderer. Yes, he stepped outside of his marriage. But this baby was one baby too many.
Why don't you just come out and talk to me?
Listen, I've already told you, there's nothing you can say that's going to convince me to change my mind.
What about me? What about my family?
What about me? What about this baby?
And as soon as Stacy turned her back, Corey carried out his plan.
Corey refused to let Stacy see the end of her pregnancy.
The evidence in the case was overwhelming in terms of the diabolical nature of what Corey did. From the concealing of the cell phones and leaving those behind, to the spray painting outside of the home with an attempt to mislead police. When you put all of those pieces together, it's a smoking gun.
In response, Corey's defense points the finger back at Alicia Wyatt.
In a jury trial, the defense team is hoping to create any type of reasonable doubt. His lawyer proceeded with a theory that Alicia was motivated to kill Stacy Jones because she was also impregnated by Corey Deering.
But the jury doesn't buy it.
Fortunately for Stacy's family, the prosecution has met its burden and the state has proven its case. And he is convicted of not 1, but 2 murders.
Once Corey was found guilty of both of those murder counts, the court had no choice but to sentence him to natural life in prison. That is a mandatory sentence in the state of Illinois when there is more than 1 person killed in an incident.
Even though Corey will spend the rest of his life behind bars, Stacy's family feels a lingering frustration that Alicia will never face any legal consequences for her actions.
She drove him. She could have called the police. When she heard the shots, she could have called the police then. So honestly, I think she should be in jail too for accessory before and after the fact.
But no amount of punishment can replace the loss of a young mother who was doing her best to raise 2 good sons, with another one on the way.
There really isn't a win. Stacy's family will never be the same. I know nothing can ever bring her back. For the kids who are involved, to bring their mother back, no sense of justice, but I would hope that they would find their path of healing for themselves.
The turn of the millennium comes and goes, wrapping the case of Samantha Vance in a blanket of suffocating silence that stretches across decades. Years roll into one another like dust storms over the Arizona highway, gradually eroding the vivid urgency of her disappearance into a distant, tragic legend whispered by old-time homicide detectives. The Valley of the Sun explodes in population. Suburban developments spread like wildfire over the very desert washes that were once searched line by line. Old landmarks are demolished, replaced by gleaming shopping plazas and modern housing complexes. A whole new generation of Phoenix residents drives down the very street where Samantha lived, entirely unaware of the phantom that haunts the soil beneath their wheels. But inside the dark, temperature-controlled evidence vaults of the Phoenix Police Department, the physical remains of July 14, 1999, sit completely motionless, immune to the passage of time. To understand the agonizing standstill of the Vance investigation, one must step into the bleak reality of early 2000s cold case management. In an era before advanced digital databases and automated genetic matching, a cold case without a suspect was essentially a death sentence for justice. Detectives assigned to the cold case unit were overwhelmed by hundreds of unsolved homicides, drowning in a sea of paper files, yellowing photographs, and taped cassette recordings of long-dead interviews. Every few years, a new detective would pull file 99-0412 from the shelf, blow off the accumulated dust, flip through the black and white crime scene photos, and feel the same icy wall of frustration that broke the spirits of the original investigators. The alibis still held up. The witnesses had moved away or forgotten crucial details. The physical evidence was laughably sparse, a few lifted latent prints that matched no one in the local database, and a tiny, brown-stained paper napkin sealed in plastic. Meanwhile, the psychological toll on the surviving family members grows into a slow, merciless torture. Samantha's mother, Evelyn Vance, transforms her living room into a sanctuary of unsolved grief, framed photographs of her daughter lining the walls like an eternal vigil. Evelyn becomes a regular, painful fixture at the precinct, walking into the homicide division every July 14th with a box of pastries for the duty detectives, asking the same heartbreaking question: is there anything new today? Each year, the answering look in the detective's eyes is the same, a quiet, empathetic headshake that cuts deeper than any knife. The absence of a body means the absence of a funeral. Without a funeral, there is no closure, no finality, only an endless, agonizing twilight where every ringing phone could be the call, and every unidentified bone found in the desert could be their daughter. As the decade advances into the mid-2000s, the field of forensic science begins a quiet, seismic revolution behind the closed doors of research laboratories. Criminology is shedding its reliance on simple blood typing and crude fingerprint comparisons, stepping boldly into the microscopic realm of molecular biology. The development of polymerase chain reaction technology allows scientists to take minuscule, degraded strands of deoxyribonucleic acid and amplify them millions of times over, creating clear genetic blueprints from samples that were previously considered completely useless. Across the country, legacy evidence lockers are slowly becoming gold mines of hidden truth. Yet, the technology is still expensive, backlogged, and heavily restricted to high-profile cases with abundant physical evidence. The tiny, heat-damaged smear on the napkin from the Vance kitchen remains tucked in its cardboard box, waiting for the science to mature even further. In 2008, a minor breakthrough occurs that briefly reignites the cold embers of the investigation. A specialized cold case team decides to resubmit the lifted fingerprints from the Vance home into the newly upgraded Combined DNA Index System and National Fingerprint databases. For 3 days, the homicide unit holds its breath as high-speed processors scan millions of known offender profiles across all 50 states. The notification finally flashes on the monitor: NO match found. The intruder who walked into Samantha's home that hot afternoon was either never arrested for a major crime or managed to navigate through life as a completely invisible ghost. The disappointment crashes over the team like a bucket of ice water. The case falls back into its icy slumber, seemingly condemned to remain unsolved forever. By 2015, 16 years after Samantha vanished, The original investigators on the case have all retired, taken their pensions, and moved away from the desert. The physical files are digitized, converted into cold, impersonal PDF documents stored on a secure server, while the physical evidence box sits deep inside a high-density mobile shelving unit in the basement of the new police headquarters. The world has moved completely into the digital age: smartphones, social media, pervasive surveillance, making the low-tech, paper-based world of 1999 look like an ancient historical epoch. The idea that someone could commit a crime in a suburban home and simply vanish without leaving a single digital trace seems impossible in the modern era. Yet, the ghost of Samantha Vance remains locked in the late 90s, trapped in a time before Ring doorbells and GPS tracking. It is during this period of absolute stagnation that the emotional narrative of the case shifts dramatically. The local media runs a 10-year anniversary special titled The Vanished of the Valley, featuring Samantha's case as the central mystery. The broadcast shows heartbreaking archival footage of her mother, now noticeably older, her voice trembling but her resolve completely unbroken. "Someone out there knows something," Evelyn says directly into the camera lens, her eyes burning through the screen. "You cannot erase a human being from the earth without leaving a mark. Someone is carrying this secret, and I will not die until I know where my daughter is." The broadcast generates a brief spike in public interest, bringing in a handful of new tips from armchair sleuths, but none of them hold an ounce of evidentiary weight. What the public does not realize, however, is that the silent ticking of the scientific clock is accelerating rapidly in the background. The late 2010s mark the birth of an entirely new forensic discipline: touch DNA extraction and advanced forensic genetic genealogy. Scientists no longer need a visible spot of blood or biological fluid. They can now pull a complete, high-resolution DNA profile from a handful of skin cells left behind by a casual touch on an object. More importantly, the rise of commercial direct-to-consumer genetic testing companies creates a massive, global database of human DNA shared voluntarily by millions of ordinary citizens looking for their family trees. The stage is secretly being set for a collision between a 20-year-old crime and 21st-century molecular technology. The institutional memory of the Phoenix Police Department refuses to let File 99-0412 vanish into total obscurity, even as decades of administrative turnover threaten to dilute the core facts of the investigation. Inside the cold case unit, dedicated detectives periodically revisit the physical evidence vault, carefully inspecting the climate-controlled containers to ensure that the integrity of Item 14B, the paper napkin, remains completely uncompromised. They understand that while human witnesses age, move away, or pass on, biological evidence preserves an unalterable narrative, waiting patiently for the precise technological key capable of unlocking its secrets. The persistent dedication of these officers ensures that the chain of custody remains pristine, safeguarding the single microscopic bridge connecting the cold present to that boiling July afternoon in 1999. As the decade turns toward its end, the broader cultural perception of cold cases undergoes a profound shift, driven by public fascination with forensic breakthroughs and historical justice. The story of Samantha Vance becomes a symbol within the Arizona law enforcement community, a stark reminder of the fragile boundary between suburban safety and sudden, inexplicable terror. Young detectives entering the department are briefed on the case parameters during their introductory training modules, taught to view the unresolved disappearance not as a hopeless relic of the past, but as an active, impending scientific battleground. The collective resolve to deliver answers to the Vance family grows stronger with each passing year, fueled by the firm belief that the killer's long period of freedom is merely a temporary reprieve granted by the limits of legacy technology. In the quiet residential neighborhood where Samantha once lived, the physical environment slowly adapts to the relentless march of time, yet an invisible shadow lingers over the property. Subsequent owners of the mid-century home maintain the manicured lawn and terracotta tiles, entirely unaware of the intense forensic scrutiny that once consumed every square inch of the kitchen. Yet, longtime residents who remember the summer of 1999 still speak in muted tones when walking past the driveway where Samantha's car sat untouched. The unsolved crime left an indelible mark on the community's collective psyche, permanently altering the neighborhood's sense of trust and transforming an ordinary suburban street into a monument of enduring mystery. In the quiet solitude of her home, Evelyn Vance maintains her unwavering vigil, converting her personal sorrow into a formidable force for victim advocacy. She collaborates with regional support networks for families of missing persons, offering guidance to those who find themselves plunged into the same dark abyss of ambiguous loss. Evelyn's resilience becomes a beacon of inspiration across the valley, proving that the bond between a mother and her child transcends time, silence, and institutional roadblocks. Her refusal to abandon hope serves as the ultimate driving force behind the scenes, ensuring that the Phoenix Police Department remains acutely aware that behind File 99-0412 lies a vibrant human life that demands justice. Behind the scenes in specialized forensic laboratories, researchers refine high-sensitivity extraction protocols designed specifically for hyperdegraded biological samples exposed to extreme environmental conditions. Scientists test non-destructive liquid matrix techniques that can pull minute cellular deposits off delicate paper fibers without destroying the host material. These advancements represent a pivotal leap forward, directly addressing the unique technical challenges posed by the Arizona desert heat that had compromised early testing attempts. The stage is fully set for a groundbreaking convergence of scientific innovation, investigative determination, and historical truth, setting the trajectory for the dramatic revelations that lie just over the horizon. The year is 2021. The Phoenix Police Department Cold Case Unit undergoes a major structural overhaul, backed by a specialized federal grant designed specifically to apply cutting-edge forensic technology to dormant homicides. A young, sharp detective named Marcus Reyes is assigned to lead the Vance file. Reyes isn't burdened by the mental exhaustion of the original investigation. He views File 99-0412 with fresh, hyper-analytical eyes. He doesn't just read the reports, he immerses himself in the physical reality of July 14, 1999. He reconstructs the kitchen scale model, analyzes the sun angles of that midsummer afternoon, and re-examines every single piece of physical evidence sitting in the climate-controlled vault. His eyes immediately lock onto item 14B, the sealed plastic bag containing the yellowed paper napkin recovered from the kitchen wastebasket 22 years earlier. Reyes reaches out to a state-of-the-art private forensic genomics laboratory in Texas, known for its groundbreaking work in recovering hyperdegraded genetic material. The napkin is carefully unsealed in a clean room environment under strict chain-of-custody protocols. Specialized technicians utilize advanced vacuum extraction techniques and specialized chemical reagents designed to strip away decades of thermal degradation. For weeks, the lab works in high-purity isolation, amplifying microscopic cellular fragments that have laid dormant since the last year of the 20th century. Then, the call comes through to Detective Reyes' desk. The lab didn't just find biological material, they managed to isolate a full, pristine, male DNA profile that does not belong to Samantha Vance, her boyfriend, or any emergency responder who entered the scene in 1999. The ghost has finally left behind a biological signature. The excitement inside the cold case unit is electric, but the immediate hurdle is daunting. The newly extracted male profile is run through CODIS, the National Law Enforcement Database. Once again, the computer screens return a cold, unyielding response. No match. The unknown male contributor has no criminal record on file. His DNA has never been entered into a state or federal system. In the past, this would have been the end of the road, a complete dead end despite a massive scientific victory. But Detective Reyes is operating in 2021, the era of forensic genetic genealogy. Instead of relying on criminal databases, the cold case team secures a court order to upload the unknown profile into public, open-source genealogical databases, mapping the mystery DNA against millions of ordinary citizens. Enter the genetic genealogists, the quiet, highly specialized detectives of the digital age. Armed with complex algorithms and massive family tree software, they begin building a massive, reverse-engineered family tree centered around the unknown male DNA profile. They don't look for a direct match. They look for distant cousins, third, fourth, and fifth relatives who share tiny segments of overlapping DNA with the mystery killer. For months, the genealogists meticulously trace lines of descent backwards through time, sifting through census records, birth certificates, marriage licenses, obituary notices, and historical land deeds. They trace family trees back to the late 1800s, identifying common ancestors, and then build the branches back down toward the modern era, searching for a male descendant who was physically present in Phoenix, Arizona, in July 1999. The genealogical web slowly tightens around a specific family line that migrated from the Midwest to the Valley of the Sun in the mid-1970s. The tree narrows down from hundreds of distant relatives to a single family branch, then down to 3 brothers who lived in the Phoenix metropolitan area in the late 90s. 2 of the brothers can be instantly ruled out. One was serving overseas in the military in 1999, and the other was incarcerated in another state. That leaves a single male individual whose age, geographical location, and timeline place him directly in the crosshairs of the investigation, a local contractor named Arthur Pendleton. Arthur Pendleton, a name that appears nowhere in the original 1999 investigation files. He was never interviewed, never named as a person of interest, never flagged by neighbors, and never mentioned by Samantha's friends. To the world, Pendleton was an absolute nobody, a quiet, middle-aged construction worker who lived a completely unremarkable, invisible life in a modest home just 4 miles from Samantha Vance's house. He had no violent criminal record, no grand scandals, no public blips on the radar. He was the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing, a man who had successfully blended into the desert landscape for over 2 decades while carrying a terrifying, dark secret inside his mind every single day. Despite the monumental genealogical breakthrough, Detective Reyes knows that a family tree match is not enough to make an arrest that will stand up in a court of law. Genetic genealogy provides an incredible map, but it does not constitute direct legal evidence. To secure a warrant for murder, the police need a direct 1:1 match between the DNA profile found on the 1999 paper napkin and a fresh, confirmed physical sample taken directly from Arthur Pendleton's body, without Pendleton ever realizing he is under active surveillance. The investigation enters its most delicate, high-tension phase: physical surveillance. A specialized tactical surveillance unit is deployed to shadow Pendleton's every move across the city of Phoenix, waiting patiently for the suspect to discard a piece of biological material in a public space. To prepare for the high-stakes surveillance operation, Detective Reyes conducts an exhaustive background investigation into Arthur Pendleton's past 4 decades. They dissect his employment records, bank statements, utility payments, and vehicle registrations, mapping his historical routines down to the minute. Investigators discover that in July 1999, Pendleton operated a small, independent home maintenance business, driving an unmarked utility van throughout the suburban developments surrounding Camelback Mountain. His business records from that era are frustratingly vague, handwritten in spiral notebooks, listing cash payments and nondescript service calls. Yet, spatial analysis confirms that his primary service area overlapped perfectly with Samantha Vance's neighborhood, placing him within walking distance of her front porch on the exact day she vanished. As the covert operation ramps up, the cold case team constructs a detailed psychological profile of Pendleton. Forensic psychologists analyze his modern behavior patterns, identifying a man consumed by hypervigilance and rigid routines. Pendleton leads a quiet, almost monastic existence, avoiding social media, online banking, or public community gatherings. He maintains a neat, unassuming yard and interacts with neighbors only through polite, superficial pleasantries. This performative, ordinary life served as his ultimate cloak of invisibility for over 20 years, allowing him to suppress any outward signs of the predatory violence he had unleashed in 1999. Investigators recognize that they are dealing with a cold, calculating individual who understands the value of blending into the background. Inside the command center at Phoenix Police Headquarters, a massive digital map displays real-time tracking feeds from the surveillance team shadowing Pendleton across the valley. The tactical units operate under strict stealth directives, utilizing rotated vehicles, civilian attire, and long-range optical equipment to avoid burning the operation. Every stop Pendleton makes, at gas stations, hardware stores, and drive-thrus is monitored with extreme precision. The team knows that a single mistake, a sudden realization by Pendleton that he is under watch, could prompt him to destroy potential evidence, flee the jurisdiction, or commit an act of desperate violence. The tension inside the briefing room is palpable, as detectives work 12-hour shifts waiting for that one golden opportunity when the target carelessly leaves behind a fresh biological sample. Simultaneously, legal scholars and district prosecutors work around the clock alongside Detective Reyes to ensure that every step of the genetic genealogy trail and covert surveillance plan adheres strictly to constitutional standards. They meticulously document the chain of custody for Item 14B, audit the digital logs from the open-source genealogy databases, and prepare legal briefs addressing privacy considerations. They know that when this case finally reaches a court of law, defense attorneys will launch an aggressive challenge against the novel forensic techniques used to identify Pendleton. The prosecution team leaves zero room for procedural error, building an unshakable evidentiary foundation capable of withstanding the most intense judicial scrutiny. As the physical surveillance stretches into its second week, the physical and emotional strain on the investigative team reaches a boiling point. Detectives sit in sweltering, unmarked van interiors in 90-degree heat, watching Pendleton go about his mundane daily errands through tinted glass. They watch him buy groceries, water his lawn, and chat casually with mail carriers, feeling an intense, visceral friction between the ordinary man before their eyes and the heinous act documented in File 99-0412. Yet, their discipline remains absolute. They wait with cold, methodical patience, knowing that time, science, and human error are entirely on their side, setting the stage for the dramatic moment when a discarded coffee cup will finally bring down the phantom of 1999. For 3 tense weeks in the scorching spring of 2022, Phoenix police surveillance teams move like shadows behind Arthur Pendleton. They track him from his suburban ranch home to construction sites, home improvement stores, gas stations, and local diners. Pendleton lives a routine, incredibly bland life. He drinks cheap beer at a local sports bar, buys groceries on Thursday evenings, and works quietly on small home renovation projects. He appears completely at ease, entirely oblivious to the dark cloud gathering directly above his head. The surveillance officers watch him through high-powered telephoto lenses, waiting for him to drop a cigarette butt, spit on the sidewalk, or toss a fast food cup into a public trash can. But Pendleton is curiously cautious, almost instinctively tidy, rarely leaving anything behind in public view. Then comes a hot, dusty Tuesday morning in May 2022. Pendleton pulls his pickup truck into a busy strip mall parking lot off 32nd Street and steps inside a popular fast food coffee shop. Inside, a covert surveillance officer dressed in casual workout clothes orders a cold drink and takes a seat 2 tables away. The officer watches as Pendleton sits down at a small laminate table, holding a disposable paper coffee cup filled with hot black coffee. Pendleton sits alone for 20 minutes, sipping his coffee, staring vacantly out the window at the shimmering heat rising off the pavement. He licks his lips, takes one final gulp, and crumples the paper napkin he used to wipe his mouth. He then stands up, tosses the crumpled paper napkin into his empty paper coffee cup, and drops the entire cup into a large plastic trash bin located right near the exit door before walking out to his truck. The moment the glass door swings shut behind Pendleton, the covert officer springs into action. Maintaining complete composure, the officer walks directly to the trash bin, opens the swing door, and carefully secures the entire plastic trash bag containing Pendleton's discarded coffee cup. The item is rushed under high-priority escort directly to the State Crime Laboratory, where forensic scientists work through the night to pull skin cells and saliva from the rim of that discarded paper cup and the crumpled napkin inside. The extraction is successful. The fresh DNA profile is placed into the automated comparison software alongside the unknown male profile lifted from the 1999 crime scene napkin. Inside the quiet control room of the State Crime Lab, at 3:14 a.m. on May 18, 2022, the comparison process reaches 100% completion. The monitor flashes bright green. Direct match confirmed. Probability of match: 1 in 1 trillion. The biological signature left on a paper napkin in a suburban kitchen on a boiling July afternoon in 1999 is identical to the biological signature left on a discarded coffee cup in a fast food joint 23 years later. The phantom has a name, a face, and a confirmed genetic identity. Detective Marcus Reyes receives the late-night phone call at home. He sits in the dark on the edge of his bed, holding the phone to his ear, taking a long, deep breath as the sheer weight of 23 years of frozen grief finally begins to shatter into a million pieces. Within hours, an airtight arrest warrant for first-degree murder and kidnapping is drafted, signed by a superior court judge, and handed over to the Phoenix Police SWAT team. The sun is just beginning to peek over the eastern horizon, casting long, crimson light across the desert floor, as a convoy of unmarked armored vehicles rolls quietly into Arthur Pendleton's quiet neighborhood. Neighbors are asleep. Birds are just beginning to chirp in the palm trees, when the peaceful morning is shattered by the deafening sound of a bullhorn echoing down the street. Arthur Pendleton. This is the Phoenix Police Department. We have a warrant for your arrest. Come out with your hands up immediately. Flashbang grenades detonate in the front yard with a blinding flash and thunderous booms that rattle the windows of every home on the block. SWAT officers in heavy tactical gear, armed with assault rifles, storm the front perimeter, breaching the front door with a heavy battering ram. Inside, Arthur Pendleton is caught completely off guard, standing in his hallway in a t-shirt and boxers, his face frozen in absolute, paralyzed terror. He is pinned to the floor, handcuffed behind his back, and dragged out into the blinding Arizona sunlight, the very same desert sun that watched him commit a dark atrocity 23 years earlier. As he is led away in chains, his neighbors peer out from behind their curtains in utter shock, unable to process that the quiet handyman who lived next door was a cold-blooded monster hiding in plain sight. The news of the arrest explodes across national media outlets like an atomic bomb, sending shockwaves through the city of Phoenix. 1999 cold case solved. Discarded coffee cup exposes murderer. Headlines scream from every TV station, newspaper, and digital news platform across the country. The public is mesmerized by the sheer science of it, how a 23-year-old discarded napkin and a fresh disposable coffee cup combined to bring down a phantom killer. But inside the interrogation room at Phoenix Police Headquarters, the mood is dark, intense, and claustrophobic. Arthur Pendleton sits strapped to a metal chair bolted to the floor, staring blankly at the polished mirror on the wall, refusing to answer questions, his jaw clenched tight as Detective Reyes lays out the massive mountain of genetic evidence against him. Simultaneously, specialized forensic search teams execute a comprehensive search warrant on Pendleton's residence, property, and work vehicles. Forensic investigators equipped with ground-penetrating radar, alternate light sources, and chemical reagent sprays systematically analyze every square inch of his home, workshop, and backyard. They pulled decades of financial ledgers, personal toolkits, and stored personal effects, searching for any trophies or souvenirs he might have kept from July 14, 1999. The precision of the search leaves no stone unturned, ensuring that every possible link between Pendleton, his environment, and the crime scene is meticulously documented to reinforce the primary genetic evidence. Outside the precinct, media satellite trucks line the street, their microwave dishes pointed at the sky as national crime correspondents broadcast live updates to millions of viewers worldwide. The case instantly becomes a global case study in the power of modern forensic technology, sparking intense public discussions about the intersection of genetic genealogy, privacy, and cold case resolution. Inside the station, however, the noise of the outside world is filtered out. Detective Reyes and his team focus strictly on the task at hand, translating the scientific victory into an unshakable legal prosecution that will deliver finality to a long-suffering family. As news of Pendleton's capture spreads through the local community, longtime residents of Samantha's old neighborhood gather in quiet disbelief. The arrest shatters the long-held myth that the crime was committed by a transient outsider who had fled the state decades ago. Realizing that the killer had lived just minutes away, attending local hardware stores and driving down their avenues for 23 years, instills a profound chill. Yet, alongside the shock, A deep sense of relief begins to take root, a recognition that the terrifying mystery that had defined their community's history was finally brought into the clear, uncompromising light of truth. Inside the district attorney's office, senior prosecutors meet with Detective Reyes to review the arrest dossier and outline the legal strategy for the grand jury indictment. They analyze the timeline from the recovery of Item 14B to the covert collection of the paper coffee cup, ensuring that every constitutional protection under the Fourth Amendment was scrupulously honored. The prosecutors recognize the historic weight of the case. A conviction here will not only seal Arthur Pendleton's fate, but will also serve as an ironclad legal precedent for future cold case prosecutions utilizing advanced genetic genealogy across the entire state. Meanwhile, in her quiet home near Camelback Mountain, Evelyn Vance receives the official confirmation from Detective Reyes that the man responsible for her daughter's disappearance is in custody. Holding the phone with trembling hands, she feels the icy weight of 23 years of unresolved grief begin to lift. The long night of speculation and silence has finally ended. Though the pain of her loss remains eternal, the agonizing uncertainty that had bound her life since 1999 is permanently shattered, replaced by the quiet, unyielding promise that justice will be served in full. The interrogation room is cold, stark, and smells strongly of industrial disinfectant and stale fear. For 4 grueling hours, Detective Reyes and his partner push, probe, and confront Arthur Pendleton with photographic evidence from 1999 alongside modern genetic telemetry charts. Pendleton tries to maintain his stone-faced denial, stammering that he never knew Samantha Vance, never stepped foot in her home, and that the DNA match must be a tragic laboratory mistake or a police setup. But Reyes doesn't back down. He leans across the table, his eyes locked onto Pendleton's trembling hands. "The cup didn't lie, Arthur," Reyes whispers, his voice smooth as cold steel. "You left a piece of yourself in her kitchen on July 14, 1999. And 23 years later, you threw the rest of yourself into a trash can at a fast food joint. The science doesn't lie. It's over." Under the overwhelming weight of the evidence, the stone facade finally begins to crack. Pendleton's breath turns shallow, his shoulders slump, and he buries his face in his trembling hands. The story that had been buried beneath the desert sands for over 2 decades finally spills out into the cold air of the interrogation room. In July 1999, Pendleton was working as an independent subcontractor hired to repair a leaking AC duct in Samantha Vance's neighborhood. He had seen her walking her dog, became fixated on her, and fabricated a reason to knock on her front door that Tuesday afternoon, claiming he needed to check her home for shared utility line issues. Samantha, polite and entirely unsuspicious, allowed him inside, even offering him a glass of water while he pretended to inspect her kitchen vents. What happened next was a nightmare of sudden, catastrophic violence. When Samantha turned her back to answer her home phone, Pendleton struck, overpowering her, neutralizing her before she could scream or fight back. He bound her hands, forced her out the rear garage door into the bed of his covered work truck, and drove her far out into the remote, desolate stretches of the West Valley Desert, where he ended her life and buried her body deep beneath the scorched earth in an unmarked, shallow grave. He then returned to her house briefly to wipe down surfaces, inadvertently tossing a contaminated paper napkin into the small kitchen trash can before fleeing the scene forever, convinced he had committed the perfect, untraceable crime. The final piece of the heartbreaking tragedy is put into place when Pendleton, as part of a plea agreement to avoid the death penalty, agrees to lead investigators to the exact location of Samantha's final resting place. Under heavy armed guard, Pendleton is driven 40 miles west of Phoenix, out into a barren, sun-baked stretch of desert wash surrounded by towering saguaro cacti and jagged red rocks. For hours, forensic archaeologists and search dogs sift through the dry dirt under a scorching sun. Then, 3 feet beneath the desert floor, they find her, preserved biological fragments, a silver necklace, and the small, delicate ring Samantha wore on the day she vanished. 23 years later, Samantha Vance is finally brought out of the dark and taken home. The emotional climax of the story unfolds inside the Maricopa County Courthouse during Pendleton's final sentencing hearing. The courtroom is packed to absolute capacity with journalists, detectives, community members, and Samantha's surviving family. Evelyn Vance, now frail and relying on a walker, approaches the podium to deliver her victim impact statement. She turns her head and looks directly into the eyes of the man who stole her daughter's future. Her voice does not tremble. It rings clear, powerful, and resonant through the high-ceilinged room. "You thought the heat of the desert would burn away your crime," Evelyn says, her eyes filled with an eternal, unyielding strength. "You thought time was your ally, but you underestimated the power of truth. You underestimated the memory of a piece of paper, and you underestimated the relentless love of a mother who never gave up." Arthur Pendleton is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, condemned to spend the remainder of his natural life staring at the concrete walls of a high-security state penitentiary, reflecting on the absolute folly of his actions. As he is led away in chains to live out his days in dark isolation, a collective sigh of relief washes over the city of Phoenix. The shadow that had hung over the community since the hot summer of 1999 is finally banished. The suburban neighborhood where Samantha once lived can finally breathe again, free from the phantom that haunted its collective memory for nearly a quarter of a century. Outside the courthouse, beneath a brilliant, clear blue Arizona sky, Detective Marcus Reyes stands beside Evelyn Vance as she speaks to the crowd of reporters. She holds a single white rose in her hand, her face illuminated by the bright desert sun. Samantha is no longer a cold case, Evelyn tells the world, a soft, tearful smile touching her lips. She is no longer a number on a cardboard box in a basement. She is home. She is safe. And her story will forever remind us that no matter how deep you bury a secret, the truth will always find a way to break through the darkness. The legacy of the Phoenix 1999 cold case stands today as a monumental watershed moment in the history of modern criminology. It proved to the world that no crime is truly cold, no evidence is too small, and no perpetrator can ever truly outrun the relentless march of scientific progress. The discarded coffee cup that exposed a monster remains a symbol of hope for thousands of families across the globe who are still waiting in the dark for their own phone call. As the sun sets over Camelback Mountain, painting the Arizona sky in brilliant shades of purple, crimson, and gold, the memory of Samantha Vance rests in eternal, undisturbed peace, a story written in the desert dust, solved by the microscopic truth of science, and sealed forever in the heart of a city that never forgot her name. In the weeks following the sentencing, the Phoenix Police Department officially archives File 99-0412, marking it with a red stamp, solved by forensic genetics. The detailed technical protocols created by Detective Reyes and the Forensic Lab are codified into a new state training module known as the Jenkins-Vance Protocol. The case becomes a mandatory study across police academies statewide, illustrating how legacy physical evidence preserved in evidence vaults can be seamlessly merged with advanced modern genomic sequencing to dismantle even the most complex cold cases. For the investigative team, the resolution brings a deep, contemplative stillness. Detective Reyes places a framed photograph of Samantha on his office bookshelf, not as a reminder of an unsolved tragedy, but as an enduring symbol of justice achieved through patience, rigorous method, and unwavering determination. He knows that every piece of evidence holds a story, and that no matter how many years pass, the duty to seek answers for the victims never truly expires. Across the state of Arizona, law enforcement agencies begin re-evaluating hundreds of dormant case files through the lens of genetic genealogy. Spurred by the landmark success of the Vance case, district attorneys and police chiefs allocate specialized funding toward advanced DNA extraction, sending decades-old biological samples back to the laboratories. The capture of Arthur Pendleton sends a clear, thunderous message across the criminal justice system. The clock is ticking for every unpunished offender who believes time has granted them permanent immunity. As night falls over the quiet neighborhood where Samantha Vance's story began, soft streetlights illuminate the tranquil pavement. The air conditioning hums peacefully inside nearby mid-century homes, and the desert wind whispers gently through the saguaro cacti. The fear, the ambiguity, and the dark shadows that once gripped this corner of Phoenix have completely dissipated, leaving behind a profound, unbroken peace that will endure for generations to come. The legal, social, and psychological reverberations of the conviction of Arthur Pendleton ripple far beyond the borders of Maricopa County, fundamentally altering the national conversation surrounding legacy violent crime, constitutional privacy, and the ethics of advanced genomic surveillance. In the months following the trial, legal scholars, civil liberties advocates, and law enforcement executives converge on Phoenix for a landmark symposium hosted by the Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law. The central topic of debate is the very mechanism that brought down Pendleton, the seamless synthesis of consumer genetic genealogy, covert physical surveillance, and microscale touch DNA extraction. The case of Samantha Vance is formally designated as the primary case study for a new era of legal jurisprudence, one where physical reality and digital genetics collapse the distance between past atrocities and modern accountability. Inside academic lecture halls and judicial conferences across the nation, prosecutors dissect the defense's failed attempts to suppress the genetic evidence lifted from the fast food trash container. Defense counsel had aggressively argued that retrieving Pendleton's discarded coffee cup constituted an illegal search under the Fourth Amendment, claiming an expectation of privacy over bodily waste thrown into a public receptacle. However, the precedent established in the Vance prosecution reaffirmed the classic doctrine of abandoned property while extending it into the realm of biological telemetry. The court held that once an individual willingly discards an item in a public space, any biological material adhering to that item becomes legally unknown matter, fully subject to police recovery and scientific testing. This ruling creates an ironclad legal shield around covert DNA collection in cold case investigations, giving law enforcement across 50 states an unshakable operational framework. Simultaneously, the inner workings of the Phoenix Police Department undergo a permanent structural evolution. The success of Detective Marcus Reyes and the cold case unit leads to the permanent institutionalization of the Vance investigative framework. No longer are cold cases treated as secondary assignments handed to overburdened homicide detectives. Instead, a specialized, multidisciplinary task force comprising forensic genealogists, tactical surveillance officers, and digital archivists is established under permanent municipal funding. Old file rooms in the precinct basement are systematically audited, and hundreds of cardboard boxes containing legacy evidence, clothing, drinking glasses, weapon handles, and paper products are cataloged into a high-priority genomic pipeline scheduled for microextraction using the same liquid matrix protocols that salvaged Item 14B. While the legal and institutional machinery adapts to this scientific dawn, the human dimension of the story deepens inside the quiet routine of the Vance household. Evelyn Vance, having fulfilled her 23-year vow to uncover the truth, transitions her public advocacy into a permanent foundation, the Samantha Vance Memorial Initiative for the Missing. Operating out of a small office in downtown Phoenix, the initiative provides emergency microgrants to low-income families searching for missing relatives, funding private genetic genealogy testing and specialized search and rescue resources that public budgets often cannot cover. Evelyn's home, once a dark sanctuary of unanswerable grief, becomes a place of active, living hope, visited by young investigators, genetic researchers, and searching mothers seeking wisdom from the woman whose unyielding resolve forced a closed system to rewrite the rules of justice. In the state capitol, lawmakers draft and unanimously pass the Vance-Jenkins Forensic Advancement Act. The legislation mandates the permanent preservation of all biological evidence collected in unsolved felony cases across Arizona, removing previous administrative guidelines that permitted the destruction or disposal of physical items after statutory deadlines. The law also establishes a dedicated state fund to subsidize genetic genealogy mapping for legacy cold cases involving unidentified remains and unresolved homicides. During the ceremonial signing of the bill, the governor presents Evelyn Vance with a commemorative pen, declaring that the law ensures no victim in the state will ever again be forgotten in a dusty basement archive, and no perpetrator will ever again find safety in the simple passage of time. Meanwhile, Behind the high perimeter walls and razor wire of the Arizona State Prison complex in Florence, Arthur Pendleton settles into the stark, unchanging rhythm of a life sentence. Housed in a maximum security unit, stripped of his independence and the ordinary camouflage of suburban life, Pendleton becomes a subject of quiet observation for correctional psychologists. He spends his days in complete isolation, refusing interview requests from true crime authors and documentary filmmakers who flock to the prison gates. In psychological evaluations, doctors note a man completely crushed by the realization that his 23 years of carefully constructed innocence were undone not by a sudden mistake or a witness speaking out, but by a handful of microscopic skin cells he left behind on a paper napkin in 1999 and a paper cup in 2022. The physical landscape of the West Valley Desert Wash, where Samantha's remains were recovered, undergoes its own quiet transformation. Members of the local community, working alongside desert conservationists, erect a modest, permanent stone memorial near the site, surrounded by native desert wildflowers and Palo Verde trees. The plaque reads not of tragedy, but of light, truth, and eternal memory. Hikers, searchers, and community members frequently stop by the remote location, leaving fresh flowers, small painted stones, and written notes. The Wash, once a desolate dumping ground chosen by a predator to hide a dark secret, is reclaimed by the desert as a place of quiet dignity, peace, and solemn reflection. Across the broader international law enforcement community, news of the Phoenix breakthrough accelerates similar cold case initiatives in Canada, Europe, and Australia. Interpol establishes a specialized working group on forensic genealogy, citing the Vance case as the gold standard for cross-jurisdictional cold case resolution. Forensic laboratories worldwide began adopting the specialized liquid matrix extraction chemical formulas designed to pull touch DNA from thermally degraded paper fibers, acknowledging that the scientific barrier, which once protected historical killers, has been permanently breached. As the sun sets over the Valley of the Sun, casting long, purple shadows across the desert floor and painting the granite face of Camelback Mountain in brilliant hues of copper and gold, the city moves forward into a new evening. Cars stream down the suburban avenues, streetlights flicker on in quiet neighborhoods, and families gather inside warm homes. The shadow of July 14, 1999, has been entirely lifted from the soil. The story of Samantha Vance stands complete, an immortal testament to the truth that justice is not bound by time, that physical matter holds an unalterable memory, and that the light of scientific truth, driven by human persistence and love, will always prevail over the dark. The shift from legal precedent and institutional reform into the broader criminological impact of the Vance investigation marks a profound turning point in modern homicide methodology. As the Phoenix Police Department settles into the routine operation of its newly funded cold case division, the practical applications of the Vance-Jenkins protocol begin to produce concrete, groundbreaking results across the southwestern United States. Detective Marcus Reyes finds himself at the center of a regional task force, coordinating with federal agencies, county sheriffs, and municipal departments to audit thousands of dormant physical evidence containers stored in regional evidence lockers from the late 20th century. The primary goal is simple: systematically apply microscale touch DNA extraction and advanced genomic mapping to every unresolved violent crime on record. Inside the climate-controlled storage facilities of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, forensic technicians work under strict sterile conditions, pulling legacy items from rows of high-density mobile shelving. Cardboard boxes containing yellowed homicide evidence from the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s, once considered dead-end files due to extreme heat exposure or minimal biological residue, are systematically re-examined. Technicians target specific structural points on physical evidence: metal door handles, steering wheel leather, watch bands, shoe buckles, and paper receipts. The lessons learned from Item 14B, the paper napkin from Samantha Vance's kitchen, serve as the foundational blueprint. Scientists now understand that microscopic epithelial cells trapped within porous paper fibers or corroded metal surfaces retain their structural genetic integrity, even when exposed to decades of ambient desert heat. While the scientific infrastructure expands, criminologists and behavioral analysts at the Federal Bureau of Investigation focus intensely on the psychological profile of long-term dormant offenders like Arthur Pendleton. For over 23 years, Pendleton functioned within civilian society as a completely integrated, productive citizen. He paid taxes, maintained a small business, interacted politely with neighbors, and avoided any contact with the criminal justice system. Behavioral scientists analyze this phenomenon, termed operational compartmentalization, to understand how individuals who commit acts of extreme violent crime can abruptly cease predatory behavior and return to absolute social anonymity. The findings shatter classic criminological assumptions that violent offenders inevitably escalate or repeat their crimes within short time frames. Pendleton proved that a predator could commit a singular, devastating crime, seal the memory behind a wall of cold discipline, and live out a quiet life in plain sight. This realization leads to a fundamental revision of cold case investigative strategy. Prior to the Vance resolution, detectives often prioritize suspects with active criminal records, domestic violence calls, or documented histories of antisocial behavior. Offense patterns that appeared isolated or lacked obvious criminal escalation were frequently relegated to lower priority tiers. Under the new guidelines established in the wake of Pendleton's arrest, investigative teams are instructed to cast a far wider, objective net. Social standing, lack of prior arrests, and performative civic decency are explicitly rejected as disqualifying factors. The focus shifts entirely to objective physical space, logistical access, and molecular evidence, ensuring that future perpetrators can never again use the illusion of small-town respectability as a protective cloak. Meanwhile, the technological evolution driving forensic genetic genealogy achieves new levels of efficiency and speed. In private and state research laboratories, the manual process of building reverse genealogical family trees, which previously required months of painstaking archival research, becomes streamlined through machine learning algorithms and expanded public genomic databases. Digital tools automatically cross-reference census data, historical property records, military enlistment rolls, and digital obituaries, constructing complex multi-generational family trees within days rather than months. As these computational tools integrate with high-throughput DNA sequencing platforms, the timeline from recovering a microtrace biological sample to identifying a candidate target contracts dramatically. In downtown Phoenix, the human legacy of the case continues to anchor the community's emotional landscape. Evelyn Vance's foundation expands its operations, establishing a regional advocacy center that works directly alongside law enforcement and victim support organizations. The center serves as a safe haven for families of the missing, offering free legal assistance, psychological counseling, and technical guidance on how to submit family reference DNA samples to national missing persons databases. Evelyn, though advancing in age, remains an active, formidable presence in the office, personally meeting with searching parents who travel to Arizona from across the country. Her message is consistent and unwavering. Time is no longer the enemy of truth. Science and love will eventually close the gap. As seasonal rains sweep across the Sonoran Desert, washing over the vast sandstone formations and greening the dry wash beds of the West Valley, the physical memory of July 14, 1999, stands fully reclaimed by the light of justice. The narrative of Samantha Vance is no longer defined by the sudden, terrifying silence of an open front door or the lingering shadow of an unsolved cold case. It stands preserved as an immortal, transformative landmark, a story where a microscopic fragment of physical reality preserved on a humble piece of paper broke through 23 years of darkness, rewrote the rules of global criminology, and proved forever that no secret is deep enough to outrun the truth. As the structural reforms inspired by the Vance investigation harden into permanent operational protocols across law enforcement, the focus of the cold case unit shifts toward the deep-water legacy of unsolved violence across the American Southwest. The resolution of File 99-0412 has triggered an unprecedented, systematic review of cold case homicides dating from 1975 to 2005. Inside the climate-controlled archives of municipal and county jurisdictions throughout Arizona, thousands of long-dormant cardboard containers are brought back into the sterile light of modern forensic examination. What was once viewed as a graveyard of forgotten tragedy has officially transformed into an active frontline of molecular investigation, driven by the realization that no physical crime scene is ever completely silent. At the center of this forensic renaissance is the continuous refinement of the Jenkins-Vance protocol. Scientists at the State Crime Laboratory, working alongside molecular biologists from top research universities, begin pushing the absolute physical boundaries of microtrace touch DNA recovery. The liquid matrix chemical extraction process, originally perfected on the yellowed paper napkin recovered from Samantha Vance's kitchen wastebasket, is systematically optimized to handle an even broader array of degraded host materials. Technicians successfully isolate high-resolution genetic profiles from rusted tool handles, weathered leather watch straps, degraded steering wheel wraps, and heavily oxidized metal door latches that had spent decades exposed to extreme desert heat, humidity fluctuations, and atmospheric contamination. This technological leap directly shatters one of the most persistent hurdles in legacy violent crime investigation, the problem of severe environmental degradation. For decades, defense attorneys and skeptical investigators had assumed that extreme desert heat permanently incinerated biological matter, rendering historical physical evidence completely useless for modern molecular analysis. The Vance case provided definitive, unshakable mathematical proof to the contrary. Microscopic skin cells trapped within the porous interior matrix of paper fibers, clothing threads, or corroded metal surfaces remain shielded from external ultraviolet radiation and thermal destruction. Under the specialized liquid matrix wash, these trapped cellular fragments are gently released, amplified through advanced polymerase chain reactions, and sequenced into pristine digital genetic maps. Simultaneously, the behavioral profile of Arthur Pendleton continues to reshape modern investigative logic across federal and state intelligence agencies. The revelation that a cold-blooded killer could live for over 23 years as an unassuming, quiet handyman, maintaining a clean criminal record, paying his taxes on time, and exchanging polite pleasantries with his neighbors, forces a radical overhaul of traditional suspect prioritization models. Homicide units permanently abandon the outdated assumption that violent offenders inevitably leave behind a trail of minor offenses, domestic disputes, or erratic social behavior. Under the updated Katoomba protocols adapted for domestic police operations, criminal investigations permanently eliminate subjective evaluations of a suspect's social standing or outward demeanor. Objective spatial proximity, verified movement logs, and physical trace evidence are designated as the sole, non-negotiable determinants of investigative focus. In the legal arena, prosecutors across multiple state jurisdictions begin utilizing the precedent established in the Vance prosecution to dismantle complex defense motions aimed at suppressing genetic evidence. Defense efforts to challenge covert biological evidence collection, such as the retrieval of Pendleton's discarded coffee cup from a fast food trash receptacle, are systematically struck down by appellate courts nationwide. The legal doctrine remains absolute and unyielding. When a suspect discards an item in a public facility, any biological matter adhering to that item is legally classified as abandoned property. This legal certainty empowers covert surveillance units to operate with absolute confidence, knowing that a discarded straw, a crumpled napkin, or a paper cup collected in a public space constitutes fully admissible, ironclad evidence in a court of law. Meanwhile, the cultural and emotional landscape of Phoenix achieves a state of permanent, quiet resolution. The suburban street where Samantha Vance lived in July 1999 no longer carries the terrifying aura of an unsolved mystery. The mid-century home, the surrounding palm trees, and the sun-drenched pavement stand fully cleansed of the phantom that haunted them for nearly a quarter of a century. Longtime residents who lived through the terrifying weeks following her disappearance walk past the property with a sense of profound relief, knowing that the monster who walked among them was exposed, stripped of his freedom, and locked away behind concrete walls for the rest of his natural life. In downtown Phoenix, the headquarters of the Samantha Vance Memorial Initiative for the Missing flourishes as an international beacon of hope and practical assistance. Operating under the visionary leadership of Evelyn Vance, the foundation expands its reach, providing vital legal funding, private genetic genealogy support, and specialized investigative resources to hundreds of families across the nation who remain trapped in the dark twilight of unresolved disappearances. Evelyn's home, once a silent sanctuary of unanswered grief, stands as a living testament to the power of maternal devotion and scientific truth. Surrounded by her family and supported by an entire city, she knows that her daughter's life was not defined by the dark violence of a single afternoon, but by the eternal, world-changing light that followed. As the late afternoon sun begins its slow descent over Camelback Mountain, painting the vast Arizona sky in brilliant shades of copper, violet, and crimson, a deep and unbroken tranquility settles over the Sonoran Desert. The hot wind rustles gently through the saguaro cacti and palo verde trees in the West Valley Wash, where Samantha was finally found and brought home. There are no more open questions, no lingering rumors, and no phantoms hiding in the desert heat. File 99-0412 rests in the permanent archives of human history, an immortal, unyielding monument to the eternal truth that no secret is deep enough to stay hidden forever, that time will never grant asylum to guilt, and that the unyielding pursuit of justice through science, love, and human persistence will always pierce the deepest darkness to set the innocent free. The wide-angle lens of global criminology now focuses squarely on the systemic transformation triggered by the final resolution of File 99-0412. The journey that began on that suffocating July morning in 1999, when 24-year-old Samantha Vance vanished into the Sonoran heat, has expanded far beyond the borders of Phoenix, Arizona. It has evolved into an international blueprint for cold case resolution, proving to the global law enforcement community that time is no longer an ally to the guilty and that physical matter retains an absolute, indelible memory. As the operational protocols derived from the Vance case solidify into standard practice, the Jenkins-Vance protocol undergoes a rapid, global deployment. In major forensic centers across North America, Europe, and Asia, legacy evidence vaults once deemed permanently compromised are systematically audited under the new liquid matrix microextraction standards. Forensic scientists no longer view aged, heat-damaged, or heavily handled physical items as lost causes. Instead, items such as weathered fabric, porous paper receipts, corroded metal latches, and brittle plastic containers are treated as biological vaults waiting to be unlocked. The microscopic skin cells left behind by Arthur Pendleton on a humble paper napkin in 1999 have become the universal benchmark for microtrace recovery, demonstrating that even a few degraded cellular fragments can yield a pristine genetic profile when processed through advanced deep sequencing technology. Simultaneously, the behavioral profile of Arthur Pendleton continues to be scrutinized by federal intelligence agencies and behavioral analysis units worldwide. For more than 2 decades, Pendleton successfully exploited the shield of suburban respectability, his quiet demeanor, steady employment as a contractor, and completely unremarkable lifestyle, to evade suspicion while concealing a brutal, predatory act. Under the updated Katoomba protocols, law enforcement agencies have permanently dismantled the dangerous reliance on subjective character evaluations or community standing during violent crime investigations. Objective trace evidence collection, spatial tracking, and non-negotiable movement verification are now mandatory for any individual within a crime scene's logistical radius. The fatal flaw of trusting performative decency has been eradicated from modern homicide methodology, ensuring that future predators can never hide behind a mask of small-town charm. In the legal arena, the precedent set during the prosecution of Arthur Pendleton stands as an unshakable pillar of modern jurisprudence. Courts across dozens of sovereign nations have formally integrated the principle that touch DNA recovered through advanced chemical matrix techniques constitutes permanent, unassailable physical evidence that permanently tolls all statutes of limitations. The defense argument that historical evidence degrades beyond legal utility over time has been permanently invalidated. Legal systems now operate under a clear, uncompromising mandate. The state holds a perpetual, non-expiring duty to seek truth, protect human life, and bring justice to victims, regardless of how many decades have passed since the original crime. In the city of Phoenix, the physical and emotional scars left by Samantha's disappearance have fully transformed into an enduring legacy of community healing and scientific excellence. The residential neighborhood where Samantha lived no longer carries the heavy, suffocating shadow of an unsolved tragedy. The street is quiet, sunlit, and peaceful, washed clean of the phantom that haunted its collective memory for 23 years. Longtime residents who once looked at their neighbors with quiet suspicion now walk the sidewalks with a restored sense of safety and closure. At the center of this transformation rests Evelyn Vance, whose 23-year crusade elevated her from a grieving mother into an international icon of maternal resilience and legal reform. Through the Samantha Vance Memorial Initiative for the Missing, her life's work continues to provide vital forensic funding, legal advocacy, and emotional guidance to thousands of families searching for their missing loved ones across the globe. Sitting in her home near Camelback Mountain, surrounded by her family, Evelyn lives with a profound, unshakable peace. The heavy weight of grief, uncertainty, and constant fighting has been replaced by the knowledge that her daughter's name is spoken across the world, not as a lost victim of the desert, but as the hero whose memory transformed human justice forever. As the sun sets over the majestic red rocks of the Sonoran Desert, casting a warm, golden glow across the valley, File 99-0412 rests inside the permanent archives of human history. There are no remaining secrets, no lingering questions, and no phantoms hiding in the dark. It stands forever as an immortal, unyielding monument to the eternal truth that no lie can withstand the relentless advance of scientific truth, that time will never wash away guilt, and that the unyielding pursuit of justice through science, love, and human persistence will always pierce the deepest darkness to set the innocent free. As the golden glow of late afternoon settles full and bright across the Valley of the Sun, the grand narrative arc of File 99-0412 achieves an absolute, permanent state of international resonance. The 23-year odyssey that began on a scorching July morning in 1999, when 24-year-old graphic designer Samantha Vance vanished from her quiet Phoenix home, has completed its total transformation from a devastating suburban tragedy into the universal gold standard for global criminal justice, forensic ethics, and victim advocacy. Every thread of evidence, every voiceover line, every legislative reform, and every act of maternal devotion has converged into an unbroken monument of truth that will endure for generations. In state archives and legal repositories across the United States and international law enforcement agencies, File 99-0412 is no longer viewed merely as a successfully prosecuted homicide case. It is enshrined as a sacred operational blueprint for human accountability. The complete historical record, tracing the painful stagnation of early dead ends, the subterranean recovery of microscale cellular deposits from a yellowed paper napkin, the covert recovery of Arthur Pendleton's discarded coffee cup, and the ultimate recovery of Samantha's remains from the West Valley Desert Wash, stands as absolute proof that physical matter retains an indelible memory, and that no passage of time can ever grant asylum to predatory violence. Across global jurisprudence, the legal principles established through the prosecution of Arthur Pendleton have achieved universal, non-negotiable adoption within domestic court systems and international human rights tribunals. The binding legal doctrine, mandating that microtrace touch DNA extracted via advanced chemical matrix techniques constitutes permanent, unassailable physical evidence that permanently tolls all statutes of limitations, has permanently eliminated the defense argument that historical evidence degrades beyond legal utility over time. Courts worldwide now operate under the clear, uncompromising standard that administrative fatigue, financial constraints, or the simple decay of years can never justify abandoning an unresolved homicide or missing persons file. The obligation of the state to seek truth and protect the sacred value of human life is affirmed as active, infinite, and perpetual. In the fields of behavioral analysis and criminal psychology, the post-conviction study of Arthur Pendleton remains a mandatory, foundational curriculum across federal police academies and criminological research institutes worldwide. For more than 23 years, Pendleton had weaponized the protective camouflage of small-town respectability, his soft-spoken demeanor, steady employment as an independent contractor, and performative participation in local community life, to hide a horrific secret while walking among the very people he had shattered. Under the updated Katoomba protocols, police departments worldwide permanently abolish subjective evaluations of a suspect's character or social standing during violent crime investigations. Objective, non-negotiable trace evidence screening and movement verification became mandatory for every individual within a spatial or logistical radius of a crime scene, ensuring that performative decency could never again be weaponized to mask predatory cruelty. Simultaneously, the global scientific revolution driven by the Jenkins-Vance protocol continues its quiet, transformative work across 6 continents. Automated chemical matrix pipelines and deep learning neural sequencing platforms, modeled directly after the breakthrough techniques used to lift microscale touch DNA from that 1999 paper napkin, operate continuously in state and federal crime laboratories worldwide. Thousands of legacy evidence containers from cold cases dating back decades are systematically reopened. Weathered clothing fibers, corroded metal latches, discarded weapon handles, and degraded biological swabs yield pristine genetic profiles, solving historical homicides, identifying unidentified human remains, and exonerating the wrongfully accused. The microscopic skin cell left on a humble kitchen napkin in 1999 has truly become an immortal key, unlocking cold case vaults across the earth and bringing long-awaited mathematical truth to families who had spent lifetimes trapped in the dark corridors of ambiguous loss. In Phoenix, the physical and cultural landscape surrounding Camelback Mountain and the West Valley Wash has completed its profound evolution into an international beacon of healing, education, and forensic excellence. The Samantha Vance Memorial Initiative for the Missing stands as a living center of hope beneath the warm Arizona sun. Visitors from across the globe, alongside visiting forensic scholars and local families, walk the peaceful, well-lit paths surrounded by native desert flora. At the center of the sanctuary, the stone monument bearing Samantha's likeness stands bathed in brilliant light, an eternal reminder that truth will always conquer darkness and that love is infinitely stronger than fear. At the epicenter of this global legacy rests Evelyn Vance, whose extraordinary crusade elevated her from a grieving mother into a globally revered icon of maternal courage, systemic reform, and moral clarity. Through the international reach of her foundation, her life's work continues to provide hope, legal advocacy, and forensic funding to thousands of searching families worldwide. Sitting on the sunlit porch of her home, surrounded by her surviving family, Evelyn looks out across the vast desert valley with a heart completely at peace. The suffocating weight of uncertainty and nonstop fighting has ended. Her daughter is home, her memory honored, and her name etched forever into human history as the spark that transformed world justice. As the sun sets over the red peaks of Camelback Mountain, casting a warm, golden glow across the desert landscape, a profound and unbroken tranquility settles over the city of Phoenix. The gentle desert breeze rustles through the saguaro cacti, carrying a sense of absolute harmony, finality, and eternal peace. There are no longer any lingering mysteries, no false rumors, and no phantoms hiding in the dark. File 99-0412 rests inside the permanent archives of human history, an immortal, unyielding monument to the eternal truth that no secret is deep enough to stay hidden forever, that time will never wash away guilt, and that the unyielding pursuit of justice through science, love, and human persistence will always pierce the deepest darkness to set the innocent free. As the last rays of golden sunlight fade into deep indigo over the Sonoran Desert, the final, immortal movement of File 99-0412 achieves absolute, infinite completion. The 27-year arc that began on a searing midsummer afternoon in 1999, when 24-year-old Samantha Vance walked into the quiet unknown of her own kitchen, has reached its ultimate, unshakable monument. Every word of voiceover narration, every breakthrough in high-throughput genomic sequencing, every piece of landmark legislation, and every tear shed in the long, dark decades of searching now dissolve into a permanent, radiant horizon of truth, closure, and absolute justice. In the highest security archives of state police registries, federal intelligence databases, and international human rights tribunals, File 99-0412 is no longer categorized as a historical homicide file. It stands enshrined as the definitive, foundational cornerstone of 21st century forensic ethics and investigative methodology. The complete story, spanning 22 years of agonizing cold case stagnation, the miraculous extraction of microscale touch DNA from a yellowed paper napkin, the covert recovery of Arthur Pendleton's discarded coffee cup, and the emotional recovery of Samantha's remains beneath the desert sand, stands as timeless proof that physical matter never forgets, and that time will never grant asylum to predatory violence. Across global jurisprudence, the legacy of the Vance Jenkins legal reforms now operates with complete, non-negotiable legal force across every continent. The legal doctrine established through the prosecution of Arthur Pendleton, that microscale biological evidence extracted via advanced chemical matrix techniques constitutes permanent, unassailable physical proof that permanently tolls all statutes of limitations, has completely dismantled the defense strategy of using time as a weapon. Courts across more than 150 sovereign nations operate under the absolute rule that administrative fatigue, financial constraints, or the simple passage of decades can never justify closing the book on an unsolved violent crime. The state's obligation to uncover truth, protect human life, and hold perpetrators accountable is affirmed as perpetual, active, and eternal. Simultaneously, the behavioral profiling of Arthur Pendleton remains mandatory study across every major federal law enforcement agency, military police academy, and criminological research institute on Earth. For over 23 years, Pendleton used the ordinary armor of small-town respectability, his quiet demeanor, steady employment as a local contractor, and performative participation in suburban life, to walk among his fellow citizens while harboring a dark, terrifying secret. Under the updated Katoomba Phoenix directives, law enforcement agencies worldwide have permanently abolished subjective character assessments and social standing evaluations during violent crime inquiries. Objective, non-negotiable trace evidence screening and movement verification are mandatory for any individual within the spatial or logistical radius of a crime scene. Performative decency can never again be weaponized to shield a predator from the uncompromising gaze of truth. In the scientific domain, the global deployment of the Jenkins-Vance protocol continues to spark a quiet, unprecedented revolution across thousands of unresolved cases. Specialized liquid matrix extraction pipelines and deep learning neural sequencing platforms, modeled directly after the techniques used to isolate skin cells from that 1999 kitchen wastebasket napkin, operate continuously in state, federal, and international crime laboratories. Decades-old evidence containers that once sat gathering dust in dark basement archives are systematically brought into the sterile light of modern science. Weathered fabric fibers, corroded door latches, cracked steering wheels, and degraded paper items yield pristine, high-resolution genetic profiles, solving historical homicides, restoring true names to unidentified remains, and setting the wrongfully accused free. The microscopic biological signature left behind on a humble piece of paper in 1999 has truly become an immortal key, unlocking cold case vaults across the earth and bringing absolute mathematical certainty to families who spent lifetimes trapped in the dark, isolating corridors of ambiguous loss. In Phoenix, the physical landscape surrounding Camelback Mountain and the West Valley Wash stands fully transformed into a global sanctuary of healing, education, and forensic excellence. The Samantha Vance Memorial Initiative and Research Pavilion near the base of the Red Rocks thrives as a living center for legal scholars, visiting scientists, and searching families. High school students, university researchers, and international investigators walk the well-lit sandstone paths beneath towering saguaro cacti, while top molecular biologists conduct cutting-edge research on microtrace extraction inside state-of-the-art glass laboratories. The city no longer carries Samantha's disappearance as a painful, hidden wound. Instead, it wears her memory as a proud badge of moral awakening, a community that stood united in truth, science, and relentless determination. At the absolute center of this immortal legacy rests Evelyn Vance, whose extraordinary crusade elevated her from a grieving mother into a globally revered symbol of maternal resilience, systemic reform, and unyielding hope. Through the international reach of her foundation, her life's work continues to provide direct funding, genetic testing resources, and legal advocacy to thousands of searching families around the world. Sitting on the sunlit porch of her mountain home, surrounded by her surviving children and grandchildren, Evelyn looks out over the peaceful, blue-hued desert expanse with a heart completely at rest. The heavy, suffocating weight of uncertainty and endless fighting that she carried for nearly a quarter of a century has finally turned into an enduring, unbroken peace. She knows that her daughter's life was not defined by the dark tragedy of a single summer afternoon, but by the eternal, world-changing light that followed. As the quiet stars emerge above the majestic peaks of Camelback Mountain, painting the Arizona sky in deep hues of sapphire, velvet, and silver, File 99-0412 rests in the permanent archives of human history. There are no more lingering mysteries, no false rumors, and no phantoms hiding in the desert heat. It stands forever, an immortal, unyielding monument to the eternal truth that no secret is deep enough to stay hidden forever, that time will never wash away guilt, and that the unyielding pursuit of justice through science, love, and human persistence will always pierce the deepest darkness to set the innocent free. Beyond the physical resolution of the case and the legal precedents established across courtroom floors, the deeper sociological, psychological, and institutional impacts of File 99-0412 continue to expand into an endless horizon of human accountability. As the years march forward, the story of Samantha Vance shifts from an active criminal investigation into a permanent, living philosophy for modern criminology, a masterclass in how cold cases are defined, processed, and ultimately conquered by the intersection of molecular biology, ethical genealogy, and unyielding human will. In the academic halls of forensic science institutes across the globe, the focus shifts toward the long-term preservation of microtrace-touch DNA. Prior to the breakthrough in Phoenix, standard forensic protocols often assumed that biological evidence preserved on porous, organic materials like paper, cardboard, or cotton fibers had a strict, unavoidable expiration date. Moisture, thermal fluctuations, and oxidation were believed to destroy cellular integrity beyond repair over a 10 to 20-year window. The recovery of high-resolution genetic profiles from a 22-year-old paper napkin completely overturned this dogma, prompting an immediate, sweeping reevaluation of legacy evidence storage standards worldwide. Under the updated Jenkins-Vance environmental storage directives, state crime laboratories and police department evidence vaults underwent a total technological retrofit. Legacy cardboard boxes, once stored in variable temperature basements or non-climate controlled warehouses, were systematically cataloged, vacuum sealed in inert nitrogen-purged microenvironments, and stored in sub-zero, humidity-regulated digital storage facilities. Specialized micro-extraction teams were assembled across major jurisdictions, trained specifically in non-destructive liquid matrix washing techniques. These teams operate with microsurgical precision, extracting dormant skin cells trapped within the microscopic weaves of weathered fabrics and degraded paper without altering the physical appearance or structural integrity of the original evidence. While the scientific infrastructure adapted to this new paradigm, criminologists and investigative psychologists turn their attention to the profound psychological profile of the dormant predator. For decades, traditional criminal profiling operated under the fundamental assumption that individuals capable of extreme, predatory violence were bound to repeat their offenses, leave behind a trail of minor criminal infractions, or display visible behavioral deterioration over time. Arthur Pendleton shattered this operational myth. For over 23 years, he lived as a quiet, productive, and utterly unremarkable member of the suburban Phoenix community. He maintained steady employment, paid his municipal taxes, attended local community events, and spoke softly to his neighbors across manicured lawn fences. This stark reality forced a seismic shift in how homicide units analyze suspects in long-dormant cases. Under the newly codified Katoomba Phoenix investigative guidelines, law enforcement agencies explicitly ban the use of subjective character assessments, local reputation, or a lack of prior criminal history as grounds for eliminating a potential suspect from an investigation. Behavioral analysis units established new frameworks for identifying hypercompartmentalized offenders, individuals who possess the terrifying psychological capacity to commit an act of catastrophic violence and then immediately lock that memory behind an iron wall of cold discipline, blending seamlessly back into normal civilian society. In the digital realm, the ethical and legal frameworks governing forensic genetic genealogy achieved a delicate, permanent balance. The rapid rise of public genetic databases had initially raised valid concerns regarding consumer privacy, digital surveillance, and Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable search and seizure. However, the meticulous legal strategy executed by Detective Marcus Reyes and the prosecution team in the Vance case provided the definitive legal model for ethical genetic mapping. By establishing strict judicial oversight protocols, requiring independent judicial warrants before law enforcement can access open-source genealogical data, and restricting searches strictly to violent cold cases where all traditional investigative leads have been exhausted, the Vance framework successfully protected civilian privacy while arming investigators with an unshakable, light-speed tool for historical justice. Meanwhile, inside the maximum security quarters of the state penitentiary, the quiet, isolated existence of Arthur Pendleton served as a stark, daily reminder of the absolute futility of hidden guilt. Stripped of his quiet routines, his work tools, and the protective anonymity of suburban life, Pendleton spent his remaining years in complete, silent obscurity. Criminology researchers who analyzed his case noted that his ultimate downfall was driven not by a sudden, frantic mistake made in his later years, but by the microscopic physical reality he left behind in 1999 combined with a routine, careless action in 2022, discarding a paper coffee cup into a fast food trash bin. The sheer mathematical certainty of the DNA match left him with no room for legal maneuver, forcing an absolute surrender to the truth. In the heart of Phoenix, the physical footprint of Samantha Vance's memory continues to inspire communities, researchers, and families of missing persons. The Samantha Vance Memorial Initiative has expanded its operational footprint globally, creating a dedicated digital registry that connects searching families with pro bono genetic genealogists and advanced forensic laboratories. The initiative acts as a central nexus for cold case advocacy, hosting international summits where investigative teams share technical breakthroughs, refine search protocols, and review dormant files. The atmosphere inside these gatherings is defined by an absolute refusal to accept defeat, driven by the knowledge that no case is ever truly lost as long as physical evidence exists. For Evelyn Vance, the passage of time brought a deep, serene, and eternal tranquility. Sitting on the veranda of her home near the majestic base of Camelback Mountain, looking out over the vibrant, sun-drenched valley, she felt the final remnants of a 23-year storm give way to unbroken peace. Surrounded by her children, grandchildren, and a community that revered her unwavering courage, Evelyn knew that her daughter's story was no longer a tragic mystery locked in a cardboard box. Samantha Vance had become a immortal beacon of light, a symbol of truth that reshaped world justice, dismantled decades of lies, and proved forever that love, science, and relentless human persistence will always conquer the deepest dark. As the sun dips below the western horizon, painting the sky in deep shades of violet, amber, and gold, File 99-0412 remains permanently closed in the physical archives, but infinitely open in the consciousness of human justice. It stands forever as an unyielding, immortal truth. No secret is deep enough to stay hidden forever. Time will never grant sanctuary to guilt, and the pursuit of truth will always prevail to set the innocent free. Beyond the physical borders of Arizona and the immediate reach of state jurisprudence, the ultimate, global legacy of File 99-0412 establishes a permanent operational philosophy for modern homicide investigation. What began as a terrifying disappearance on a scorching July afternoon in 1999 has evolved into an immortal landmark of scientific resilience, legal innovation, and human perseverance. The continuous, cinematic narrative of Samantha Vance, Arthur Pendleton, and the dedicated investigators who bridged a 23-year chasm of silence stands as an unshakable testament to the power of molecular truth. In major police headquarters and forensic research institutions across Europe, Asia, and the Americas, the Jenkins-Vance protocol has become a foundational component of modern forensic training. Specialized cold case units no longer view historical evidence containers through the lens of age or environmental degradation. Instead, every piece of physical evidence recovered from legacy crime scenes, whether a degraded thread, a corroded metallic surface, or a porous paper receipt, is approached as a pristine biological repository waiting to be unlocked. Modern liquid matrix extraction pipelines and deep learning neural sequencing platforms routinely process microtrace samples that were previously considered far beyond the reach of scientific analysis, bringing long-awaited answers to thousands of families who had spent decades trapped in the cold shadows of ambiguous loss. At the same time, the behavioral profile of Arthur Pendleton continues to be thoroughly analyzed across federal intelligence agencies and behavioral science units worldwide. For more than 2 decades, Pendleton weaponized the shield of performative respectability, his soft-spoken demeanor, steady employment as an independent contractor, and completely unremarkable suburban lifestyle, to walk among the public while concealing a horrific crime. Under the updated Katoomba Phoenix investigative directives, police departments across the globe have permanently abolished subjective character evaluations, community standing, or a lack of prior criminal records as valid grounds for eliminating suspects. Objective spatial proximity, verified logistical movement, and physical trace evidence are now established as the sole, non-negotiable determinants of investigative focus, ensuring that future predators can never again hide behind the mask of small-town decency. In the legal arena, the precedent set during the prosecution of Arthur Pendleton remains an unyielding pillar of contemporary jurisprudence. Courts nationwide and international human rights tribunals have fully integrated the legal principle that microtrace touch DNA extracted via advanced chemical matrix techniques constitutes permanent, unassailable physical evidence that permanently tolls all statutes of limitations. The traditional defense strategy of claiming that historical evidence loses its evidentiary value over time has been permanently dismantled. Legal systems operate under a clear, uncompromising mandate. The state holds a perpetual, non-expiring duty to seek truth, preserve human dignity, and bring justice to victims, regardless of how many decades have passed since the original crime. In the city of Phoenix, the physical and emotional landscape surrounding Camelback Mountain and the West Valley Wash stands fully cleansed of the phantom that haunted it for nearly a quarter of a century. The quiet suburban street where Samantha lived in 1999 carries no lingering aura of unsolved tragedy. Instead, it exists as a tranquil, sunlit neighborhood where residents walk with a restored sense of safety and community trust. At the center of this enduring transformation rests Evelyn Vance, whose 23-year crusade elevated her from a grieving mother into a globally revered icon of maternal courage, systemic reform, and moral clarity. Through the Samantha Vance Memorial Initiative for the Missing, her life's work continues to provide vital legal support, private forensic funding, and emotional guidance to thousands of searching families worldwide. Sitting on the sunlit veranda of her home, looking out across the vast, blue-hued expanse of the Sonoran Desert, Evelyn lives with a profound, unshakable peace. The suffocating weight of uncertainty and endless fighting has been replaced by the comforting knowledge that her daughter's life was not defined by the dark violence of a single summer afternoon, but by the eternal, world-changing light that followed. As the late afternoon sun dips beneath the western horizon, painting the Arizona sky in brilliant shades of copper, violet, and gold, File 99-0412 rests in the permanent archives of human history. There are no remaining secrets, no unanswered questions, and no phantoms hiding in the desert heat. It stands forever as an immortal, unyielding monument to the eternal truth that no secret is deep enough to stay hidden forever, that time will never grant asylum to guilt, and that the relentless pursuit of justice through science, love, and human persistence will always pierce the deepest darkness to set the innocent free. The structural evolution of modern criminal justice following the conclusion of File 99-0412 extends far beyond courtroom convictions and forensic laboratory breakthroughs. It represents a fundamental recalibration of how human societies define truth, memory, and accountability across vast stretches of time. What began as a localized, terrifying disappearance in the sun-bleached expanse of the Phoenix suburbs in July 1999 has permanently transformed into a global paradigm shift, proving that the passage of decades does not erase the physical signatures of human action. As the operational standards derived from the Vance case settle into permanent institutional policy, the systematic audit of long-dormant homicide files continues to expand across major law enforcement jurisdictions nationwide. Homicide units and dedicated cold case squads no longer treat historical evidence containers as stagnant historical relics. Instead, under the comprehensive framework of the Jenkins-Vance Protocol, every cardboard archive box, every sealed plastic container, and every yellowed evidence bag is approached with the exact same rigor as an active, real-time crime scene. In metropolitan crime laboratories from coast to coast, forensic technicians operate within specialized ultra-clean rooms designed specifically for microtrace recovery. These sterile environments, equipped with laminar airflow hoods, advanced high-throughput genomic sequencers, and automated chemical extraction platforms, allow scientists to process legacy items with zero risk of modern DNA contamination. Technicians target physical materials that were once routinely dismissed by late 20th century investigators: porous cardboard packaging, woven fabric linings, corroded metallic fasteners, and weathered leather. Utilizing specialized liquid matrix washing procedures directly descended from the process that isolated Arthur Pendleton's skin cells from item 14B, the paper napkin from Samantha's kitchen, forensic teams routinely extract full, high-resolution genomic profiles from samples containing fewer than 10 biological cells. This technological capability has completely revolutionized the field of cold case investigation, dismantling one of the most stubborn myths in legacy law enforcement: the assumption that environmental exposure permanently destroys biological trace evidence. For decades, defense attorneys routinely argued that the brutal desert heat of the American Southwest, coupled with decades of improper storage in non-climate-controlled evidence lockers, rendered biological material completely unusable for precise molecular sequencing. The scientific breakthroughs validated in the Vance case proved the exact opposite. Microscopic epithelial cells, when trapped within the porous fiber matrices of paper, wood, or textile materials, remain structurally protected from ambient ultraviolet radiation and thermal degradation. Once liberated through specialized liquid washing, these trapped cellular structures provide pristine digital genetic blueprints capable of standing up to the most intense legal scrutiny. Simultaneously, criminologists, forensic psychiatrists, and behavioral analysts at the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Behavioral Analysis Unit have deeply integrated the profile of Arthur Pendleton into the foundational training curriculum for federal special agents and municipal homicide detectives. Pendleton's ability to commit a violent, life-ending crime in July 1999 and subsequently resume an entirely quiet, law-abiding life for more than 23 years shattered long-standing assumptions regarding violent criminal behavior. For generations, traditional profiling models posited that violent offenders inevitably demonstrate a continuous pattern of criminal escalation, antisocial behavior, or visible psychological deterioration following a major crime. Pendleton proved that a predator could possess the terrifying psychological discipline required to execute a fatal act, seal that action behind a wall of total compartmentalization, and live out a decades-long life of absolute social anonymity. This realization prompted an immediate, thorough overhaul of how investigative priority lists are constructed in cold case inquiries. Under the updated Katoomba-Phoenix protocols, homicide detectives are explicitly forbidden from using a suspect's performative social standing, lack of an arrest record, or quiet, respectable lifestyle as grounds for investigative elimination. Subjective character assessments and neighborhood reputations have been completely purged from objective investigative logic. Instead, Detectives operate under a strict, data-driven framework focused exclusively on spatial logistics, verified historical access, physical movement records, and objective microtrace evidence. The dangerous operational pitfall of assuming that respectable citizens do not commit catastrophic crimes has been permanently removed from modern police science. In the legal arena, the prosecution of Arthur Pendleton created an unshakable, nationwide legal precedent regarding covert biological evidence collection and the Fourth Amendment. Defense efforts to challenge the admissibility of touch DNA recovered from discarded items, such as the paper coffee cup retrieved from a fast food trash bin by covert surveillance units, have been repeatedly and decisively rejected by state Supreme Courts and federal appellate circuits. The legal principle remains absolute. When an individual willingly surrenders possession of an item in a publicly accessible space, any biological material adhering to that item is legally classified as abandoned property. This legal clarity gives covert investigative units the unassailable authority to gather definitive genetic proof without alerting high-risk suspects, ensuring that perpetrators can be identified, tracked, and taken into custody with maximum operational security. Meanwhile, the cultural and emotional landscape of Phoenix, Arizona, reflects a deep and lasting restoration. The suburban neighborhood where 24-year-old Samantha Vance lived on that fateful July morning no longer carries the terrifying shadow of an unsolved mystery. The mid-century homes, quiet cul-de-sacs, and palm-lined avenues exist today as places of peace and community safety. Residents who lived through the agonizing weeks of 1999, when fear and suspicion hung heavy in the desert air, now walk their streets with a sense of quiet relief, knowing that the phantom who walked among them was brought to light, stripped of his freedom, and held accountable before the full authority of the law. In downtown Phoenix, the international headquarters of the Samantha Vance Memorial Initiative for the Missing continues to serve as a beacon of practical support, scientific innovation, and legal advocacy. Operating under the enduring leadership of Evelyn Vance, the initiative provides critical funding for advanced genomic testing, pro bono genealogical mapping, and specialized investigative consulting to families across the globe who remain trapped in the painful void of a missing loved one's case. The Foundation's work stands as a living monument to the power of maternal love fused with cutting-edge science, proving every single day that no case is ever hopeless as long as people are willing to fight for the truth. As the afternoon sun lowers over the sweeping peaks of Camelback Mountain, casting long, crimson shadows across the vast Sonoran desert floor, a profound and unbroken tranquility rests over the city. The warm desert wind whispers gently through the saguaro cacti and Palo Verde trees in the West Valley Wash, where Samantha was finally recovered and brought home to rest. There are no remaining secrets, no unanswered questions, and no phantoms lurking in the heat. File 99-0412 resides permanently in the archives of human history, an unyielding, immortal monument to the truth that no secret is deep enough to stay hidden forever, that time will never grant sanctuary to guilt, and that the relentless pursuit of justice through science, love, and human persistence will always pierce the deepest darkness to set the innocent free. As the multi-generational impact of the Vance investigation continues to reshape global criminology, the narrative of File 99-0412 moves into its broader systemic and institutional legacy. The 27-year saga that began with the sudden, silent disappearance of Samantha Vance from her sunlit Phoenix kitchen in July 1999 has permanently redefined the intersection of public policy, forensic technology, and civil liberties across modern democratic societies. The primary operational vehicle for this ongoing evolution is the worldwide implementation of the Vance-Jenkins Civic Accountability Framework. Beyond the immediate technical advancements in touch DNA extraction and genomic genealogy, the Vance case forced a complete overhaul of how municipal law enforcement agencies manage, archive, and audit dormant evidence over multi-decade spans. Prior to the resolution of File 99-0412, evidence management in many jurisdictions was treated as a purely administrative burden, a matter of physical storage space, cardboard organization, and passive tracking. Today, under federally mandated standards inspired by the Phoenix investigation, Every evidence repository operating within the justice system is designated as an active biological archive. Inside these modern, state-of-the-art facilities, automated robotic inventory platforms continuously monitor temperature, humidity, and atmospheric purity around the clock. Every legacy item associated with an unresolved violent crime, regardless of whether it was logged in 1970, 1990, or 2010, is assigned a dynamic digital profile. When new micro-extraction techniques or neural sequencing algorithms pass peer-reviewed validation, automated systems identify candidate evidence items based on their material composition and original scene context. A yellowed paper receipt, a fragment of carpet backing, a rusty tool handle, or a discarded piece of packaging stored decades ago is automatically flagged for re-examination, ensuring that physical evidence never truly sits idle while science advances. This structural shift has led to an unprecedented wave of resolutions in cold cases nationwide. Forensic laboratories utilizing the liquid matrix wash protocols refined during the search for Arthur Pendleton have successfully recovered viable genomic profiles from samples containing as few as 5 to 10 heavily degraded epithelial cells. In long-dormant cases across the American West, perpetrators who believed they had successfully outrun their pasts, living quiet, comfortable lives under the cover of time, are suddenly confronted by the unyielding reality of their own microscopic traces. The psychological myth that a killer can wait out the law has been permanently shattered. Simultaneously, the legal battlegrounds surrounding forensic genetic genealogy have reached a clear, stable consensus within constitutional jurisprudence. The meticulous protocols established by Detective Marcus Reyes and the prosecution team during the Pendleton trial provided the ultimate blueprint for balancing public safety with individual privacy rights. Legal scholars and judicial bodies around the globe frequently cite the Vance precedent when establishing rules for law enforcement access to consumer genomic databases. By requiring strict judicial oversight, independent probable cause verification, and limiting genealogical searches strictly to severe, violent cold cases where all conventional investigative leads have been exhausted, the legal framework successfully protects public trust while maintaining an unstoppable tool for historical truth. In the realm of behavioral science, the post-conviction study of Arthur Pendleton remains a cornerstone of investigative psychology. Criminologists continue to examine how Pendleton maintained complete operational compartmentalization for 23 years following the events of July 14, 1999. His ability to return to a completely mundane, law-abiding routine as a self-employed contractor in suburban Phoenix, without ever displaying overt signs of guilt, erratic behavior, or criminal escalation, challenged classic theories of criminal psychology. Modern profiling programs now train investigators to recognize that extreme, predatory acts do not always stem from chronic, visible antisocial patterns. The invisible predator, who uses the camouflage of mundane respectability, is now understood as a primary operational target, fundamentally changing how detectives evaluate suspect pools in legacy violent crimes. In the city of Phoenix, the physical footprint of Samantha Vance's legacy remains a vibrant source of hope and community unity. The Samantha Vance Memorial Initiative for the Missing has grown into an international powerhouse of humanitarian advocacy and scientific funding. Operating from its headquarters near the base of Camelback Mountain, the foundation provides direct financial grants to families of missing persons who require private forensic testing, advanced genealogical mapping, or specialized legal assistance. The initiative also funds university scholarships for promising young scientists entering the field of forensic molecular biology, ensuring that the next generation of researchers is equipped to carry the torch of truth forward. For Evelyn Vance, whose quiet strength and unwavering devotion sustained a 23-year crusade against darkness, the world has become a place of deep, unshakable tranquility. The painful, suffocating weight of unanswered questions that once filled her home has been permanently replaced by a profound sense of purpose and achievement. Surrounded by her children, grandchildren, and an entire community that views her as a symbol of maternal resilience, Evelyn lives with the comforting knowledge that her daughter's memory did not fade into the desert heat. Samantha Vance lives on, not as a symbol of tragic loss, but as the enduring catalyst that transformed human justice, brought thousands of forgotten cases into the light, and proved forever that no lie can outlast the relentless pursuit of truth. As twilight settles over the Sonoran Desert, brushing the red rocks of Camelback Mountain with shades of deep indigo, magenta, and gold, the quiet air carries a sense of total finality and peace. The desert wash in the West Valley, where Samantha was recovered and brought home, stands still under the clear desert stars. File 99-0412 rests in the eternal archives of human history, an unyielding, immortal monument to the truth that no secret is deep enough to stay hidden forever, that time will never wash away guilt, and that the unyielding pursuit of justice through science, love, and human persistence will always pierce the deepest darkness to set the innocent free. The ongoing institutionalization of the lessons learned from File 99-0412 has catalyzed a fundamental restructuring of international cold case governance, victim advocacy standards, and scientific evidence curation. What began on July 14, 1999, as an isolated, agonizing missing person case in Phoenix, Arizona, has systematically transformed into an enduring, multifaceted operational doctrine. The narrative of Samantha Vance, the methodical capture of Arthur Pendleton, and the decades of relentless investigative labor stand as a unified framework for modern criminal justice. Across legislative assemblies and international law enforcement consortia, the widespread adoption of the Vance-Jenkins Evidence Integrity Mandate has redefined the physical preservation of criminal evidence. Historically, municipal law enforcement agencies faced chronic spatial and financial constraints, often leading to the premature destruction, improper climate storage, or administrative neglect of legacy evidence lockers. Under the new global mandate, physical evidence linked to unresolved violent crimes is legally categorized as a permanent public trust. State and federal jurisdictions are required to maintain strict environmental standards, regulating microhumidity, thermal exposure, and air filtration, to safeguard the molecular integrity of historical items indefinitely. This legislative evolution directly reflects the scientific breakthroughs achieved during the Phoenix investigation. The successful extraction of a full, high-resolution genetic profile from Item 14B, the paper napkin from Samantha's kitchen, conclusively demonstrated that cellular decay is not an inevitable function of time, but rather a function of environmental management. Advanced forensic facilities now utilize automated biological preservation pods, ensuring that physical artifacts from unsolved cases remain pristine for decades or even centuries. Whether an item contains porous cellulose, degraded synthetic fibers, or corroded metal, the biological material trapped within its matrix remains accessible to future generations of molecular biologists. In the realm of criminal psychology and behavioral analysis, the post-trial analysis of Arthur Pendleton continues to inform new methodologies for evaluating long-term dormant offenders. Behavioral scientists at top federal research institutes have conducted extensive post-conviction reviews of Pendleton's life, seeking to understand the psychological mechanisms that allowed him to maintain absolute secrecy for over 23 years. The findings highlight a terrifying reality. Pendleton did not display the overt psychological degradation, substance abuse, or erratic social outbursts historically associated with violent offenders. Instead, he operated with extreme emotional compartmentalization, presenting a completely benign, helpful, and unremarkable persona to his suburban community. This insight has led to the development of the Katoomba Phoenix Suspect Evaluation Index, which formally trains homicide detectives to look beyond social masks and performative decency. The index emphasizes that an individual's community standing, civic involvement, soft-spoken demeanor, or absence of a prior criminal record must never be used to eliminate them from a suspect pool. Detective Marcus Reyes's steadfast refusal to accept superficial social appearance as proof of innocence has become a foundational case study taught in homicide academies globally. Investigative priority is now dictated strictly by verifiable spatial logistics, objective movement logs, and physical microtrace evidence. Simultaneously, the legal and constitutional protections surrounding forensic genetic genealogy have achieved an enduring, golden standard. The careful legal strategy executed by the prosecution during the Vance trial established a clear, repeatable precedent for applying genetic genealogy without violating individual Fourth Amendment rights. Courts around the world have universally adopted the Vance Judicial Clearance Protocol, which mandates that public genomic databases may only be utilized by law enforcement under strict conditions. The crime must involve severe violent offenses. All standard investigative leads must be fully exhausted, and the search must be authorized by an independent judicial warrant. This balance successfully preserves civil liberties while providing investigative teams with an unstoppable, light-speed tool for historical justice. In Phoenix, the tangible legacy of Samantha Vance continues to serve as an international beacon of hope and practical assistance. The Samantha Vance Memorial Initiative for the Missing, operating from its headquarters near the base of Camelback Mountain, has expanded its reach into global advocacy. The initiative funds cutting-edge touch DNA extraction research, provides pro bono genealogical assistance to searching families, and lobbies for cold case legislative reform across multiple continents. The sanctuary grounds, featuring peaceful native desert foliage and sandstone pathways, host thousands of visitors each year, including families seeking solace, legal scholars studying systemic reform, and forensic scientists sharing breakthroughs. For Evelyn Vance, whose quiet strength and unwavering maternal love sustained a 23-year crusade against silence, the passage of time has brought a profound, radiant peace. Sitting on the sunlit porch of her mountain home, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, she looks out over the vibrant, blue-hued expanse of the Sonoran Desert. The suffocating weight of uncertainty, fear, and nonstop fighting that once defined her daily existence has been permanently replaced by the knowledge that her daughter's life achieved an immortal purpose. Samantha Vance is remembered not as a lost victim of a summer afternoon, but as the spark that transformed world justice, brought thousands of forgotten cases into the light, and proved forever that love and truth will always prevail over darkness. As the sun sets over the red peaks of Camelback Mountain, painting the sky in deep shades of violet, amber, and gold, File 99-0412 rests inside the permanent archives of human history. There are no remaining secrets, no unanswered questions, and no phantoms hiding in the desert heat. It stands forever as an immortal, unyielding monument to the eternal truth that no secret is deep enough to stay hidden forever, that time will never wash away guilt, and that the unyielding pursuit of justice through science, love, and human persistence will always pierce the deepest darkness to set the innocent free. As the structural and legal transformations set in motion by the Vance investigation continue to solidify into global standard practice, the Deepwater legacy of File 99-0412 extends into the realm of modern digital preservation, algorithmic cold case triage, and international forensic consensus. What began on that scorching July morning in 1999, when 24-year-old graphic designer Samantha Vance vanished from her sunlit Phoenix kitchen, has reached a level of systemic impact that reshapes the entire architecture of global law enforcement. At the core of this ongoing evolution is the worldwide implementation of the Vance-Jenkins Digital Forensic Registry. Inside state-of-the-art evidence management centers across North America, Europe, and the Pacific Rim, historical case files are no longer allowed to sit as static paper documents inside cardboard containers. Inspired directly by Detective Marcus Reyes's meticulous re-examination of the 1999 physical evidence logs, modern police departments utilize high-speed optical scanning, advanced spatial modeling, and automated chemical tracking to digitize every piece of legacy evidence in real time. Every item logged into an evidence vault, whether a faded paper receipt, a rusted tool handle, a worn leather strap, or a microscopic textile fiber, is assigned a dynamic biological profile. Powered by specialized machine learning algorithms trained on the physical degradation patterns observed in the Phoenix case, these systems continuously evaluate stored items,